here decided. Hopefully all is good with everyone. Prayerfully your day has started off well. And whether it has or has not, hopefully we can help contribute to a grander day. Alrighty. All right, let us go ahead and get started. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name. It is His authority that we pray, praise, proclaim, protect, and protects. Today, message of mine. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi, ¿cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi, ça va? Ni hao, namaste, sign kituya, mayo, I see you, news, bonjour, what's up? Aloha, ciao, also, Barigani, Aquaba, Matase, Itose, Jambu, Mibini Kofi, the Franco Katana Mwewe, Bokuto, Bokutab, greetings, grand rising, top of the rising to you, Las Vedas, Halabah, etc. We're in the new month as of Saturday, which means that actually tonight is the beginning of Shabbat for us, matching the Gregorian calendar for the next 3 weeks or so after this. So Shabbat Shalom to you early, just in case I don't see you before or talk to you before this evening. Hopefully all is well with you. I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Something to Christ, but we are always changing lives one mind at a time, being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Today, worship okay. Thank you, family, for joining us either on YouTube. Sorry, on this platform or that platform. On certain platforms, apparently, for suggesting that we exist on other platforms. So I apologize. I have to do weird stuff with that. But prayerfully, everybody can see and hear us all right. Prayerfully, you can look in the description. If you're over here and see all the information that you need to in the description. If you're over here, prayerfully you can catch everything you need on Linktree. Both places should be able to look on Linktree. But we thank you for being on with us. We're continuing with Q&A today. I actually did have one from yesterday, but I don't see the person on. So until I see the person on, or at least until we get into this a certain amount of time, I will not be able to, or I will not answer that question. But today's Q&A, so you guys get to drive the algorithm, so to speak. You get to say what the rhythm, the flow, the peaks, the valleys of this are, etc. And prayerfully that'll help for today. Question: can you guys? Am I coming through okay over here on this platform? Before we get started, before we get ready to do our Bible pledge and everything. It says over here that we're doing all right. It is? Okay. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and get started for today. Excuse me. I'm going to go and get my water. Last bit I have for clean hands. And then we'll go ahead and get started with Q&A. If nobody has a question right away, then we can go ahead and I'll jump into something. But prayerfully, we'll have some questions for Q&A. We're coming through the prism, right? Our particular Ladach or kingdom, Ladach Shamayam, kingdom of heaven, prism, Ladach Shamayam, we are a nation that belongs to Yah. So anything that we answer, the prism we look through, etc., is already law and already certain things that are spiritually that we as a culture, that we as a people believe, and that we uphold. So if you give me a second, I will be right back. If anybody has questions, we'll do a Bible pledge and we'll jump right in. All right. Alrighty. I'm gonna grab some water real quick. Got the little one with me today too, so making sure that I can see him fine from where he is, chilling out, doing his work, and then probably going to just play some games. Alright, praise you. Alright, we're ready to get started. Thank you all for letting me go and grab my water real quick. How you doing, Brother Dwayne? How you doing, Chris? How you doing, Culture Prospect? How you doing, Brother Alton, Sister Carla, Bold Servant, big Brother Charles, Double OG, Triple OG, Just Wine, or Just Wino, Just Win, Justine Win? I can't, I'm sorry. I messed that all up. I apologize. I was all over the place on that dancing. How you doing, Minister Raj? How you doing, Righteous Thoughts? Shalom Akut Dabara, Terrell, Brother Rodney, Donna. We appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for being on with us today. Don't forget, Feast of Tabernacles coming up. Don't forget, we're looking at September, really the first thing next month that's going to come up is going to be 4 hours of power. And then after that, we're getting ready for Feast of Tabernacles. So hopefully you guys are ready for all of that. Praise y'all. How you doing, Sister Deborah? All right, we're going to get ready to say our Bible pledge. Gotta have clean hands. Looks like everybody can see and hear me all right. We just double check, see. Yeah. Okay. All right. So it looks like we'll be all right in what we need to do. Praise God. Okay. All righty. All right, here we go. So let's go ahead. We'll say our Bible pledge. We'll jump right in. I saw a question over here. Brother Dwayne, I think I saw somebody with a question over here. Okay. I saw one question over here. Was it another question I saw? Okay, I thought I saw two questions. Okay, one question. Somebody was saying, let's get this question. All right. Okay. Praise y'all. You can just put your right hand in the air, your device in the air, or your Bible in the air. Just repeat after me. This is my Bible. This is my sword. And this will I trust. For your Hasheph is Lord. No sort of God shall ever be heard. For this is my Bible. And this is Yah's word. Hashem Yahweh. Amen. When Yahweh Shem, his name is authority. Let it be done unto us. You may be seated to go back to what you're doing in the presence of the Most High Yah. Once again, thank you and appreciate you and honor your presence with us today and the journey that's going to take place as we do day 2 of our Q&A. Day 2 out of the last 2 days. We take every other Thursday and Friday, as long as the schedule allows. We take every other Thursday and Friday now, and we do Q&A to make sure that we can answer questions. We go usually about 15, 30 minutes over. So we'll probably go about 15 minutes over today or so. I went quite a little bit longer yesterday because I wasn't going to be able to make it on until late. So if you have questions, comments, or concerns, let them go. How you doing, Brother Dennis? I'm going to come over here next, but I'm going to start over here. I saw that I don't remember who asked it. I apologize. Oh, the one who I was butchering the name. Justine Win or something. I was all over the place. But is the earth flat? So we can start, well, we can answer this kind of, even have some stuff even in our body shot series about the earth creation and stuff like that. But as far as specific, is the earth flat? I'll say this. I am usually put in the flat earthers, and I don't mind. Matter of fact, it's probably apropos that I'm calling it flat earther. Flat earther really is something that's used not only for persons who do some kind of question everything. That being said, also too, there are some things that I would say as far as if we believe the word, and if we believe what some other persons have said, not just persons who are into the Bible or followers of the way or Hebrew Israelites or so-called Christians or whatever your religious value is through prism, through title, etc. One of the things that we actually have seen and discovered is that what Yah's word says always comes true. And eventually even scientists start to bow down, even if they have to do it through quantum physics, or they have to do it through a theory of gravity or theory of relativity or whatever the case might be. When we start looking at what they're saying, stuff starts coming back. So I want to first, this is going to sound wild, but those of you, not wild, but it's going to sound like I'm talking around the question, but I'm going to answer the question, is the earth flat, right? And we're going to do it through biblical prism, always, right? So just setting this stage because many persons, is it Samadai? I'm not sure, Samadai. Thanks for being on. There are a whole lot of persons who don't realize, who don't comprehend, who don't understand what's going on as far as when the argument, even within so-called religious circles, takes place over the shape of the earth. How you doing, Sister Jennifer? So is the earth flat? Is the question, and the prism we're looking through is kingdom. So we have to realize a bunch of stuff we've been told about the earth, right, by somebody else is not true. I'll start with this. When we were growing up, and we who were growing up in the area of the 80s, I'm an 80s baby, early 80s baby, right, born 1982. So in 1982, the thought process for us, and what we were taught in school, is that there were 9 planets, right? We know that that's no longer true, right? When I was growing up in school, we were taught that there were 7 continents. We know that not only is that no longer true, that was never true, because a continent is, by definition, a large landmass completely surrounded by water. Africa, Asia, and Europe are connected. Europe didn't even used to exist on the map. It used to be called Eurasia. Europe, or Europa, was a word that literally meant you belonged to the Roman Empire. So anybody who belonged to Rome could be Europa, for all you know, right? It wasn't until persons wanted to continue the romantic values that made their throne have whatever legitimacy we see that we started doing that. So technically, especially if you took North America and South America together, because they're connected too, but that means that you only really have 4 continents, and really underneath that, Pangea still exists because all of the planets are connected to the same source, right? Or all the planets, all the continents, excuse me. Every single continent is connected to the same source underwater, which means technically, as far as what things are going on, there cannot be, by definition, 7 continents. Really, there can't even be, well, if you're talking about underwater, you can't talk about, there's 4 continents. We are also connected as one. And if you know how land works, it works the same way the Bible did, right? The Bible said, which is, the earth comes up through volcanoes, builds on top of each other over time, and then becomes the earth that you walk upon, right? Still connected to the same source, the same ground, one continent, right? Technically, one large landmass completely surrounded by water, right? So, or unless you talk about what's on the surface. So, there's really only one continent. If you break it down to above the surface, there's only 4 continents. But we were taught in the 1980s that there were 7 continents, right? I'm saying all that to say that just because we're taught something doesn't mean that that's the original of what we should know, and that includes the Earth being flat. Would it surprise you that even big time and big name scientists, now they won't give you flat, and I've never preached, and neither does the Bible, that the Earth is flat like a pancake. Because that means you're closer to 2 dimension and 3 dimension. Those of you that believe in 4, 5, 6, 7, 12 dimensions, you definitely, the flatter you make it, the less dimensions, right, required. Now, it should be Yah's dimension that we're looking for anyways, but anyway, we'll go past that. So, how you doing, LJ? Thanks for being part of the community. How you doing, Oil Goat, right? I see your question, Sister Deborah. I'm going to come back to you. You have to come over this way. How you doing, David? Thanks for being part of the community. We appreciate you on all platforms. Thank you so much. How you doing, Lauren? How you doing, Minister Tracy? Everybody. Lottie Dottie, everybody. Thank you so much for being on. Okay. So, and sorry for my ashiness today. Went swimming. Didn't put my lotion on last night. Didn't put any on yet today. So we will have to take this ashy word today. I didn't bring any with me. Okay. So, but in all these things that go on, you have to recognize and realize, what Yah's will is and what He has for us has not changed and always ends up getting proven correct. So, what if I were to tell you that scientists are beginning to admit they won't give you flat like a pancake, which once again I don't believe in, the Bible doesn't say, but they are starting to admit that the earth cannot be a ball. They won't come out and say it. Right, but somebody such as Neil deGrasse Tyson, and many persons bow down at the feet of Neil deGrasse Tyson. I don't necessarily. However, if you speak something that's true or is willing to, at least, because he's like their missionary, so they send him out. He preaches the word. He preaches their gospel, and then And then so he preaches he preaches their gospel, and then they kind of feel out if everybody's ready for stuff, right? So you were taught in school that the world was round, and you were taught supposedly that everybody always believed the world was round, even though those of you in the United States of America may not know that even in the early 1900s, there were persons that were still losing their jobs as teachers, being arrested and being thrown in prison or in jail due to the fact that they were teaching that the earth was round. Now somebody might say, well, that doesn't mean that we should necessarily listen to that if we think that's crazy. But hear what I'm saying? That's a lot later. A lot of you were taught that it was the Roman Catholic Church who wanted to make sure everybody realized that the earth was still flat and that the earth, that the sun revolved around the earth. When actually Nicholas Copernicus was hired by the Roman Catholic Church to teach otherwise, right? So this whole thing that you were taught the persons were being sent because they believed the world was round, that's a lie. Right? You were taught that the Roman Catholic Church was headhunting because the earth was supposed to be flat, but they were actually headhunting over anybody who told you the earth was supposed to be round. We have the book by Nicholas Copernicus, who was literally hired, made a cardinal so he could blend in, sleeping around, I think with one of his cousins or something like that, while being a cardinal. But they didn't care. He was being taught from a young age. He was manipulated and taught, and he didn't want to even give out the truth. They offed him and then put it out on his deathbed. Thank you, Orgo, for your support and wanting to do the same. Appreciate you. Right? So this stuff has been around. What if I were to tell you that persons such as Neil deGrasse Tyson have been telling persons the principle of believing that something is spinning at the rate that the earth is spinning, right? That principle within itself, he said, I did the math and really is simple. And it makes a whole lot of sense, right? This is the guy who would call me a crackpot. And probably call me a crackpot today for mentioning it, but I'm just saying what he said. If you were to listen to him, he says, he's been finally admitting, if you spin something, and probably just because he wants credit, he wants to be able to come out back and remember who finally did the to look like him, right? But he made a statement that makes a whole lot of sense. If I spin something, beloved, right? Now I'll get into the answer to the question, landing the plane time. If I spin something, even if you believe the earth is spinning, you believe the earth was round at some point or is round, whatever the case might be. Question for you though, if I spin something, anything, what's going to begin to happen to it? Right? Especially if it's pliable in any way, shape, or form. If I spin something, if I take pizza dough, and I toss it, I spin it, right? What's going to happen? Even if it starts off with a ball, I knead it and all that, and I put it together, and then I pack it, and then I start to stretch a little bit, and then I start to go, hey, and I start my spinning. What's going to happen to the pizza dough? I hear you, Mom. Right? You said we're consistently being lied to in grade school during the 80s. We were taught Sphinx's nose were destroyed by Satan. So it's the moment, right? And they were destroyed by Frenchmen, at least so said the Frenchmen, right, throughout history. Because they didn't like to make their nose grow. Right? But think about this. If I take something and I throw it up in the air, and I spin it, and I spin it, and I spin it, it's going to begin to get longer, right? So it's going to spread, but also as it spreads, as it rotates, it's not only going to get longer this way, it's going to, in order to do that, the mass has to move, right? The mass is being moved from being, if you believe it even started in a ball, right? Then it has to get flatter. So even by their theory, and eventually, come on, right? Eventually, that thing will break. If you just keep spinning and don't stop. Eventually, even the earth would break. So if you believe that the earth somehow is spinning, I don't even know the numbers. Somebody can look it up and put it in the chat if you want. But when you find the numbers, you'll find they're pretty crazy numbers, right? Not only that the rate that the earth is spinning supposedly around the sun, but that the rate, in order for their math to work, I don't just have to be that, but then also for it to work, their math has to say that the earth is not only spinning itself, it also is spinning around the sun, that the moon is spinning around it, but somehow the moon is not spinning. The moon basically just continues to do as it does, by the way. The moon continues to go around just like this, which probably means the sun just goes around like this. That's it. Somebody taking it or moving it right around where they want. But like the Bible talks about, where it literally says that the sun comes out like a horse out of a horse and chariots out of in a race out of the stable and runs around and it goes back into a stable. You said you worked at Papa John's in the 90s. Balls of dough we had to slap out. Yeah, you had to slap them things out. Or, you know, they call it needed, maybe put those knuckles through, stuff like that, whatever. 1,000, oh wow, thank you, brother. How you doing? You know, 1,038 miles per hour. That's what you would have to do. Don't forget that, you know, in order for them to say that they had to go to the moon, besides the fact that they had new technology like golden tinfoil and stuff like that, like, you know, that, you know, you guys, if I put golden tinfoil long enough on the grill, it ain't gonna last that long. But they were saying going through the atmosphere, having rockets attached to, you know, headed, now space supposedly being cold and stuff, so protected from the cold and the heat, right? Sub-zero, by far, sub-zero degree temperatures and, you know, at sub-zero degree temperatures and somehow, some way somehow, some way the spinning, the rate of spin of the Earth around the sun, the rate of spin within itself, right? The rate of spin of rotation that the moon is going through while it itself is going around the sun, supposedly, right? These are things that persons would say make more sense than the Bible explaining what happens and the Earth being the center. So the reason why there's a flat Earth thing is because, you know, the Bible even supports that all the Earth, and like I said, flat Earth not being flat like a pancake. But the Bible automatically just tells you that Earth is the center of creation. The quiet used to be part of the earth, or the heavens and earth come from the same place, right? In the beginning, Elohim created the heaven and earth, right? And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the spirit of Elohim moved upon the face of the water. Elohim said, "Let there be light." There was light, and Elohim saw the light, and he saw that it was Tabah, and so he separated the light from the darkness, right? So, but that was all earth. In the beginning, heaven and earth. It's talking about one of the heavens, right? There's many heavens, but it's talking about one heaven specifically. Right? So heaven, right, is actually, as far as the heaven is talking about there, it's not even talking about the heaven where Yah resides. It's talking about what he calls in the earthly heaven. And in between earth can be considered to be heaven, including the atmosphere that we breathe in, which is why we should be careful not to pollute, because when we pollute heaven. Right? When you start to think about the concepts that we've been talking about a lot in these series lately and everything, that heaven meets earth, you've heard me say that quite a bit now recently. When you think about heaven meets earth, even when we get to Genesis 28, what is the covenant? Not only that it will be the children, stuff like that, but where will the children live? They'll live here. Where are you gonna build up the pillar? All right, when you build up these pillars and you make the altar, where are they? According to according to Israel, right? According to Jacob at the time, but according to who we now know as Israel, what he's making the covenant is where heaven meets earth. Heaven meets earth is where Israel will reside. Where this also is where the ladder will be, what we call Jacob's ladder, up and down. The angels are the messengers of the Most High. They come where heaven meets earth. Persons forget that the context from the beginning was heaven meets earth. When you went to Eden, guess what part of the definition is of Eden, right? If we were to take the part of the definition of Eden, or really all parts and put them together, then the definition of Eden basically says that you are in a delightful spot that is a door to the Most High's presence and His love operating with you, right? Same thing as we could talk about Emmanuel, literally meaning Elohim within us, right? Or and us within Elohim, symbiotic relationship. Or when one gets married to Yahashua HaMashiach, he wants to abide in you and you in him, right? Heaven meets earth is a consistent theme. Or where is the kingdom? There's coming a time where, yes, if you want to, yes, it's very true. I can face east still to this day and be in accordance and try to say my prayers. That's not a Muslim thing. That's a very Israelite thing. That being said, there has come a day where you have to realize that heaven is not east, nor is it west, right? Nor is it north, nor is it south, right? But the kingdom of heaven, lo, it belongs where? Inside of you, where heaven meets earth. You are made out of adat, made out of earth. But you keep this principle going, and you realize that everything was without form and void. It was gas, right? And darkness came upon the face of the deep. That was water, right? And then Elohim enlightened it. That's when because physical light doesn't exist until Yom Daled, the fourth day. Sun, moon, and the stars are developed, which means that day here is a period of time, because in Hebrew, day doesn't always mean 24 hours. So these are not even 24-hour periods, but these are periods of time, or not even time existing yet. These are just periods in eternity in which Yah is taking his time. So who knows how much time it is? Because when Yah takes eternal time, it doesn't even make sense to the mind. Right? How you doing, Sister Snap? How you doing, Jeremy? Thank you so much. I'm proud of you being who you are, continuing to grow. Thank you for being back home. Right? So you have to recognize the first 3, really 4 days of creation are created in periods of eternity, because time doesn't exist until the 4th day, because time is based off of what? The moon for months, the sun for days and for seasons, and the stars to help to make sure you get certain things that the earth needs, right? Because they're made out of what everything else is made out of, so they're there to replenish as well as make sure that they are there to give you whatever light is necessary from afar during the nighttime, right? We have a very different concept. So when Yah, even when you talk about a day to Yah but 1,000 years, it's saying a day, that's a yom, that's a period of time. What period of time are we talking about? Right? Or are we talking about period of eternity? Yah's not looking at stuff. He has to come in time and tell you what he's talking about here. But a lot of times, even when we hear a dialogue about time in the Bible, we don't know what it's doing, right? It's a double entendre, if you will, when Yah's spitting these bars. So when he says time, times, and half a time, in the Bible, several times over, we know that's 3.5 years. We also know that the Hashbai's ministry, right, what we call his ministry, was 3.5 years. We know this, right? We know all these different things that are going on, right? That being said, 3.5 years, also in a dream, becomes 1,260 years. So there's things we can find out. There's times when he says 10 years in the Bible, and you need to know what is the mindset of the context or the cultural aspect of this. A person will know, you know, even though we still don't know the date and the hour, but there's certain things we can track and trace that have already happened, because his time is different. So when he says day, or when he even says years, you have to perk up and you have to look at context. You have to see, is it vision? Is it dream? Are we talking about Yah? Are we talking about angels? Are we talking about man? Are we talking about his, right? But in the beginning, these 4 days, there's not even a concept of what you now think of as 24 hours, right? Which used to only be 12 hours. But there's not really a concept of 24 hours, right? You know it can be broken into 24, but there's not a concept of 24 hours. The only time anybody thinks 24 and equates it to 12 hours piece that we would have went by, because that's why there's 1 a.m., 1 p.m., 2 a.m., 2 p.m., because it used to just be one, whatever the first hour, or right? Sometimes even you can think of it as watches, but whatever the first hour is, you have to recognize that that's basically saying the first 2 hours of the day. The second hour, the next two, or the third and fourth hour of the day. That's how we thought back then, right? Now you have a lot of difference. You have a lot of persons thinking differently because we're looking at somebody else's prism. But there was no concept even of that back then, right? So what's happening? The earth is without form and void. It's a gas. It starts to liquefy. Now all of a sudden, before you get to even the sun, the moon, the stars, you're going to see on the second day, the enlightened top half of the waters have gone from gas, liquid to solid, and they move up. Now you still have the earth. The earth is now still here, right? And so the earth basically now starts to, or the water that's on the bottom, the earth starts to come on the bottom part of the waters, comes up, you're right, with herb yielding seed. Can't grow anything yet because there's no sun, moon, and stars. That will begin when the sun, moon, stars hits, but you have the waters, right? Remember there was no rain, so the waters even shot up through the ground. There was seed that was ready and everything, but now you have to get ready the sun, the moon, the stars. Right? Now you have to get ready the sun, the moon, and the stars. And so that's where, and so once you get the sun, the moon, the stars, the earth is shot up, hardened, all these different things. Now you're beginning to see what we now call Adatz, Asase, the earth, creation, start to come, etc., etc. And once a creation, as far as the fish of the air, the fish of the air, the fowl of the air, the fish of the sea, which included dinosaurs also, and then you start to see ants creep upon the ground, and the bigger animals come through, and then once all that stuff is together, then man comes into existence. When anything that's like we call living beings, even though grass and seeds and trees and stuff are all alive, but what we consider to be living stuff, right? Like the vegan persons, supposedly, they still have to supplement with meat from time to time because people have messed up nature so much. But vegan persons don't really talk about unless how they're eating things that are alive as well. But that being said, yeah, you had the plant life. That's why, by the way, one of the offerings to the Most High Yah is actually seed offering, grain offering, right, corn offering, stuff like that. Those are sacrifices as well that we give because even that is alive. That's why there were certain ways we were supposed to burn grass because we don't burn grass. We still should honor it and honor what Yah's created, right? Everything is about life. The devil comes to destroy our concept of life. That's why we don't even have a relationship with our food, right? It used to be that, hey, you raised and I'm sorry, I'm on Earth. I think I've made a point about Earth. I'm gonna finish up on Earth in a second, but I just want to say this while we're going through this because Earth obviously is so much bigger, right, than just that because we have to relate to it to how we live today and how far it's fallen and how far we have fallen with it because we were supposed to be the ones to dress and to keep it, especially the men. The men are the ones to make sure. That's what Adam's job was, or his work, his calling was before Eve even existed, right? That was part of his responsibility to not only to keep or guard the earth, guard the Garden of Eden, right? Part of the word guard. So he's supposed to guard this garden, but also he was to what? He was to keep. He was to dress it. He was even supposed to decorate it or look at how it is or come through. So even when we had this concept of man didn't have to till the ground, that's not saying that man never had to plant anything. It was that the ground was where it was supposed to be. It was perfect. The part of the curse is the longer we live in this curse, the less and less nutrients and the less and less stuff that's there, the less and less mind we have, the less and less relationship we have with the food. Right? If you even go back then, Adam wouldn't have ate meat. But even when Noah then began to be allowed to eat meat, a very interesting thing happens on the ark. We didn't talk about this in About a Shot series when we were talking about Noah. We didn't talk about this last year. But a very interesting piece. And Tadah, thank you, Holy Spirit, for bringing it to our references today. A lot of persons don't think about the relationship Noah gained with food first. You see what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying? Like, Noah gained a relationship with food. He was on the ark with the food. It was only allowed, right? There were certain animals, right? If they were unclean, you only had two couples of animals, right? 2 males, 2 females. If they were clean animals, you would have 7 males, 7 females. Why did they allow more of the clean? Because they were for the first time allowed to eat meat as well as eat herbs and stuff like that, if they needed sustenance. Now you have the clean animal, right? But I don't think a lot of persons realize they're still raising, right? We call it livestock, right? Livestock, because the stock is alive. We now, in our mind, animals, what we eat at the store, somebody gets a pack of chicken, somebody gets a pack of steak, somebody gets a pack of, whatever, ribs. You have no relationship with it, so you don't think about it. An Israelite, not only is it easy for an Israelite to say, oh yeah, I should eat clean. If an Israelite is a shepherd, or is doing what shepherds do, we started off as shepherd people, that's why we shouldn't have any problem being under a shepherd, right? But Israelites, we as shepherd people, we as nomadic persons, we had no problem comprehending what was going on here. But think about this. If one is raising the livestock, not only is it easier to know what to eat, what to do, etc., you also have to realize when you're eating or when you're going after the livestock, you have a relationship with the livestock, right? You eat what you raise. That's why you raise, I'm not trying to say, I know it's swine, but, that's why you hear the term, you raise pigs, right? Somebody raises chickens. They're talking about relationship that they have with the food, with the earth, right? When you grow your own food, when you raise the sunflower seeds hit different. Have you ever noticed that when you raise something, that you grow something, it tastes different? A lot of persons say, yeah, because you're the one that grew it. No, it actually has your DNA. If you grow some tomato plants on the porch, and you go out there to get tomatoes, those are tomatoes that had your DNA, your breath, going through it, right? When you put oxygen together, the oxygen carries pieces of you. Right? It's like, there's no such thing as a totally separate source. When you do that, you have to chemicalize it, right? Somebody has to chemicalize, right? To make, they call that synthetic. Yes, there's O3, three pieces of oxygen that are tied together, right? That's the ozone, right? But within the ozone, you have O2. You need the O2 because there's oxygen. The O3 is there to protect, right? It's so strong, can protect from certain ultraviolet lights, right? But the O2 in between is the thing that you need to breathe, right? And one of the things that happens, why is there too much carbon dioxide? Well, if you get rid of the oxygen, which are the things that live, that also help you breathe, but also make sure there's enough stuff that's protected in between the O3 and you. I'm getting too technical. I feel like I'm getting too technical, but you get the point, right? So you got to make sure O2, but all the oxygen, long story short, oxygen, H2O, hydrogen, oxygen, whatever. When you drink H2O, if this H2O, and it kind of sort of is, I've added some stuff too, but it kind of sort of is just water. But if you were to drink actual water from like a river, or actual river, or a river source, they are supposed to be coming not just with oxygen, but with a whole bunch of stuff. And so you're supposed to have knowledge of what you eat. You're supposed to have knowledge of the earth. You should have knowledge of what you breathe. But one of the things that the devil has done is to keep you from knowledge of self. Because if you don't have knowledge of earth, why would you think about this earth? But this earth is supposed to be in subjection through the soul, through the psychology, to the will of the Most High, the Spirit. How you doing, Into the Deep? Yeah, we don't even recognize what we eat. So that's why if you grow your own food, if you grow your own tomatoes, if you come out there on that balcony and you eat them, it's because you breathe into the tomatoes. The tomatoes have been breathing into you. You've already been having a relationship. You and the tomatoes are one. Now, I don't know. I have to say this out loud because nowadays persons are crazy. They just take whatever you say, which is kind of a dangerous place to be, even as a teacher, right? But you want to. But you have to recognize that if Yah created life, all life is tethered together, right? And the only fruit that he didn't want you to eat was the one that you untethered you from him. The true venom is a poisonous plant, right? You got a venomous snake get together with a poisonous plant, and the next thing you know, you can't stop the venom, and you can't stop the poison. If you don't know what I'm talking about, a snake's venom, the venom is you don't want to get bit, right? But venom, right, is designed to go in your veins and cause some foolishness, right? So the venom is crazy because of that going into the blood, right? But you could actually eat. Please don't do it. But technically, one could eat venom, right, and be okay. And technically, one could have poison, which you don't want to drink. But technically, if you don't have any cuts or anything, technically, one could have poison and put it on their body and be okay, right? For example, if you were to spill Clorox bleach on yourself on your arm, you probably still should wash the mess out of your arm, but you would probably be all right. But if you were to do what some foolish persons would do, I will not even say it so somebody can record me saying it, but you get the gist. Someone will not be all right. So, but here you had a poisonous fruit that went into the mouth, and you had a venomous snake that took care of the outside, and now your body is not the same. Our goal is to get our spirit and soul ready to go into another body. But I say all that to say, we don't talk about the relationship one has with food and with nature. If I'm raising cows, do you not think, I don't care how many cows I'm raising, if I'm raising cows, do you not know I have to have a relationship with those cows? Even if the relationship is, just go, we go, it doesn't matter, whatever. You still have to know what they do. You have to know how they operate. You have to respect them. Native Americans, when they were often animals, they would live with them, respect them, but hey, it was known we're going to hunt these animals. And I'm not saying this is even necessarily all the way our culture, but they would even pray over the animal and sometimes even thank the animal for a sacrifice, right? Because they had a relationship with the food. If you raise seed, that seed is still alive. We just don't think about it, right? If you raise turnips, you have relationship. If you raise potatoes, you have relationship. But when you don't raise anything, when you don't think about life in your food, so the flat earth thing gets deeper because the more we use evolution, which by the way, if that's just one type of evolution dealing with the earth. You don't think about how the creation or that there's something called intelligent design. You cannot have all these theories about how the earth, the sun, the universe come into place unless you believe that the universe was intelligent enough to design itself. And that's just part of the belief system that many carry, whether they be Monique from Baltimore, who supposedly was a Christian in life, or all these other persons. She's She's like, she'll even tell persons like, right, look, we don't believe in God, but you get what I'm saying. She'll say, I'm just quoting, she'll say stuff like, oh yeah, you can call it God whatever you want. I call it the universe. Or you can call it the universe, I call it God. But why is that? Because Monique was doing a lot of stuff she wasn't supposed to do, right? And how did she get past it? She got past it by this new world order, right? That not only gets us to look at the earth in a terrible fashion, but she got caught up basically in this new world order that has us get away from creation, relationship with the Most High, relationship with our nature, relationship with the food. And she wanted to do a whole bunch of stuff, including having bisexual relationships and stuff like that. She wanted to do all that different things. So most of these persons do nowadays, most of these persons say, okay, but we'll find a way to be in tune with God, but you have to create God, because God, Gaud in German, is whatever you make up. So if you're going to have God in worship, you have to come up with it, or her, or it, or them, or they. You see, you have to come up with it. Even if you are the God, if you're going to change who you are, you got to become your own God. You have to say, okay, I was created to be this, but I'm going to turn, I'm going to repaint myself. I'm going to do some damage to myself. I'm going to rip out parts of me and put them in other places, so that even though it still looks ridiculous, and I'll be sitting up here scarred for the rest of my life in certain areas, hey, at least, I was able to create my own image. When you do this, not only is this witchcraft done to oneself, but for real, this is you saying, I am the creator. So, although I keep trying, if you notice, I'm trying to come out of this first question, but it leads us to a bunch of other questions. How you doing, Money Green? Right? It leads us. How you doing, Sister Tonight? We don't have relationship with Earth. We don't have relationship with Earth because in order to have relationship with the Earth, wouldn't you have to know the Maker of Earth? And thank y'all for the love. Thank you, babe. Right? You said you planted turnips and mustard greens and garden. Right? If you're truly going to have relationship with the Earth, you have to have relationship with the Maker, or you'll never be able to salvation, bring it back to its original intent. So the mindset, I can tell the mindset, I'm not saying everybody has to become gardeners, but when persons are getting into their herbs and stuff, it helps them to have, if you notice, even if they might not know the Creator's name, this and that, or whatever, you'll see that persons who really are into the earth do certain things that other persons don't do. They live certain ways that other persons don't live. They have certain principles that even if they're doing crazy work in some areas of their life, you'll see certain things for gardeners or herbalists, right? Or persons who are into that science, the sweet science of the earth itself. You'll see that they have certain things, and you'll see it's easier for them to listen and watch and support each other regardless of color than it is for some persons that have the intellect but don't have any relationship with the earth. You ever notice that? It's easier for them to be able to go ahead and have that nice, beautiful smooth tone in their voice, right? It's easier for them to relate somehow. It's easier for them, it seems, to go into different belief systems, so there's stuff you got to be careful with. But even in that, you'll see that it's easy for them to, even if they have a particular belief system and they say they're of Yah, they can still at least hear somebody else and be like, okay, let's have a conversation. They'll usually give more leeway in certain areas than others will. Why is that? Why is it? I live with a herbalist, I know. Why is that? Because even in being in tune with the earth and saying, okay, I'll be so much into the earth, something has to happen. Sometimes it causes persons to worship parts of the earth itself, right? But a lot of times you'll see that these persons are like, hey, there has to be something greater, because the more I go into earth, the more I see how much environment is here, the more I see how much it supports life, the more I see how alive it really is, the more I see myself in it and it in myself, then I realize there has to be something. If there is something on the spiritual plane, it has to be something very similar. Because whatever's on the spiritual plane has had to manifest this. There's an automatic, how you doing, Rock? There's an automatic, that coming together that for a lot of other persons is more difficult, right? When somebody starts to go, I can be healed without it having to be chemicalized or coming outside of nature, then all of a sudden you realize that person is a little, something changes in you, right? You become part of the flat earth personnel all of a sudden overnight, right? But so the more we talk about Earth, the Earth, NASA itself now, and persons are starting to admit the Earth can't be round like a ball. It's impossible. If you believe all these different things they told you, it can't spin that fast, and at the same time still be round. And if it's spinning that fast, then it has to come apart. So even trying to save it becomes something that's pointless, right? Which is why you have to be careful with evolution. Not only is evolution, at least some parts of evolution are racist because of Darwin. and eugenics and stuff like that. If you don't understand that, you're just not being honest. But also that type of mindset that says that only certain persons can be up top, have spun, literally spun this narrative to where now persons are in their control and are getting further and further away from actual nature, right? So if we find out the natural, right, who we are naturally, who we are naturally, you will start to see that you're going to start to realize that part of your nature in the spirit has to be attached to the spirit, right? You realize real quick that part of your nature in the spirit has to be attached in the spirit. How you doing, Kevin Graham, Rising Team? Right? Praise Yah, bold servant. So a lot of persons don't know who you are on all three platforms, right? All three planes of existence. All three. You know what? I'm not even gonna talk because that's too new worldish. Not to even down the new world order persons, but that's actually not proper to say. It's actually not three planes of existence. You are three persons in one, right? How you doing, Kevin? So that's a great question. I could keep on going. I'm going to be faithful because today's the last Q&A day. We got other questions lined up. But that question could take me on and on and on. Let me come over to Brother Dwayne. Thank you for waiting patiently, big bro. I got to find it. Hold on. I know I saw something from you, right? Okay. Elaborate on the differences between a monster and a beast. Crazy. All right. That's it. Brother Dwayne always hit me with a deep question. Let's go. And welcome to everybody on all the platforms. We appreciate you so much. Thank you for being on. We honor you. We honor your journey. We hope that you're doing well. Thank you for doing this again on this rising. And early Shabbat Shalom to you if I don't see or hear or talk to you before sundown or 6 p.m. New York time or 6 p.m. your time, whatever that might be. The difference between a monster and a beast. So if we're talking about and this is a great question because we're basically taking biblical law or kingdom law, therefore Israelite law. We're taking the laws of Yahweh, the most important, so Yahweh, His word, and we're using culture there. But then we also have to look at the culture out here in the world. We are not of the world. However, if there are times when we are in it, and especially if we're going to talk about being in a corporation. And when I say corporation, I'm not talking about just the United States. Right, because if you go into a United States courtroom, it's a corporation, or even a state legislative corporation as well, because there are corporations on state levels and other levels as well, right? This is why they can fire you. This is why they can bring you before certain panels and stuff and see if they're going to keep you or fire you on your job, because they're corporations. You have to have them. But when you go to court, right, when you go to a judge, you have to. When you go to court, when you go to a judge, what do you have to do? When you go to the court, when you go to the judge, you actually go to the corporation or the representative of the corporation, right? What is a corpse? A corpse is something that has no life. So everything we're about to talk to is not necessarily 100%. It's kind of a game, right? A monster and a beast. It's kind of a game. How you doing, Sister Shirley? I was going to talk about some of what you posted yesterday, but I was going to wait till I saw you come on. Thanks for being on. So, corporation, right? A corporation, you have corpse in the name, correct? Right? With a corporation, you have corpse in the name. If you're in the Marine Corps, right, you're dealing with something that's dead, Marine Corps. If you have, if you have Marine Corps, you're dealing with something that's dead, right? So Marines can be gone ahead and thrown out in the front line, all these different things. How you doing, Sister Judith? Right? These are what you're dealing with. You're dealing with the corpse. You're dealing with all types of persons on here who are supposed to be artificial persons or artificial persons themselves. Because if somebody is notated the thought of being dead, how can they be alive? Right? This is why we talk about even sovereignty. You have to know about the spiritual aspect of things, right? If something is dead, how do you talk about it being alive? Can it be both? Can somebody be alive and dead at the same time? Yes, they can. You call it a zombie a lot of times, right? But we're talking about something that's lost. I'm going to give you the law or the legalese. I'm going to give you the lawful terms. But you have to realize, corpse, corporation, a dead thing, right? And what is a tion on the end of the word? You have corpse. And then you have shun, which means it's a noun, a person, place, a thing. So if something is part of a corporation, this is a person, a place, or a thing, even including property, chattel slavery, It takes with a new moniker, or it comes to a new moniker today. But we're talking about the same thought process, right? So now the question, as far as the difference between a monster and a beast, the word beast is used biblically to describe the government that belongs to the Satan. But if you're not careful, the same concept of beast can just mean government, period. And you might miss that there are what you might consider to be beasts that actually are cherubims and seraphims that have particular ways that y'all once had their government to. So for example, right, somebody being like what you're talking about, Revelation chapter 4. I mentioned this yesterday, we mentioned it in our series. When you see in Revelation chapter 4 that there's the throne, right, and there's the rainbow, right, on that Yah has his part of the rainbow, we have ours, his is green, ours is red, orange, yellow, blue, indigo, violet with green in the middle. So he is the center of love, he is love himself, right? But when you see that chapter 4, before you go into chapter 5, and the seals, or the one who can open the seals of the scroll, has to be presented, right? And you even see that he will look similar in certain fashions to these other cherubims or these other even beastly looking creatures. We have to first look at the fact that these four creatures, and forgive me, I don't know if I'm going to go in order, but you have one with the head of a lamb, one with the head of a man, one with the head of a lion, and one with the head. No, I just did that wrong. Hold on. No, head of the sheep. I'm sorry. The sheep is the one that also is the lamb that was slain will show up. Sorry. One is the head of a lion, right? One is the head of an ox. One is the head of a man, and one is the head of an eagle, more than likely an eagle. Okay, and these are the four ways of governance that Yah has. So the sheep that will show up representing the Messiah in chapter 5 is also a government, right? Because he has all the eyes going through his body, eyes, government, govern, how do you govern, what governs you, looking upon being ubiquitous in your life, the way that you see things. He's going to show up too. So remember, Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6, the government shall be upon, right? The government shall be upon his shoulders. A child was born, a son was given, the government. He's bringing the government. So he himself is bringing the government. But there's four governments that are beneath the throne. Right? These four governments beneath the throne, Revelation chapter 5, they are the head of a man on one of them. What does that mean? Son of man. Right? How Son of Man is supposed to come and govern. Also, too, we as men, we as Adam, or Ban Adam, or Ban Adam, right? Or we as the children of Adam, we are supposed to have something that governs us, right? And therefore can become our government. Then you have the ox representing who? Aleph, if you know the culture, right? Aleph 1, so representing holiness. Also Aleph representing power. Also Aleph representing the first, putting first. Also Aleph representing the Father, right? So the Father's government, the Son's government. We see the bird, right? Which usually we say is an eagle or even a dove, right? But we'll say let's go with eagle because that's usually what's agreed, even though for real, that's pretty much what's agreed that it is because you're looking through a romantic lens and Romans really like eagles, right? That was part of their, when they went to war, they carried the eagle with them, a literal carved out eagle. And if the eagle was ever captured or wasn't brought back, that's when you were not only really knew that Rome lost, but you knew that they were desecrated and you were embarrassed if you couldn't bring the eagle back. So that's why we think of this last one and just say eagle automatic. It's not 100% sure that this was actually an eagle. We just know it was a bird of some kind, right? Now, in Isaiah, I believe that is, you're going to mount up like eagle's wings. I believe it's the same as eagle, but the other one we're not so sure. I just put that out there to let you know. That being said, though, Holy Spirit is represented as a dove, as a bird. So you also have the Holy Spirit that governs, but also too, you'll see this bird, you'll see this eagle that flies around talking about Israel, right? Israel is going to mount up on eagle's wings. So you're seeing the govern, a big part of the government, right? A beast of sorts. It's not necessarily referred to as a beast, but you're also talking about different way the language flows, but you're seeing a way of governance, right? Something that if a person saw these cherubims the way they described, you'd be afraid, right? You'd be worried if you saw these cherubims, right? But this thing that is scary to others is not scary to us, right? Just like Revelation, I'm sorry, babe. Comment est-ce qu'on dit révélation? Revelation?
Yeah.
Le français?
Revelation, yeah.
Right. Revelation?
Lation.
Lation. Revelation. Okay. Oh, sorry. Revelation. All right. So revelation, revelation. Lation. Yeah. So basically, revelation. So yeah. So revelation. It means a person, place, a thing, as the result of reveal, as a result of their joy, right? So we, as a result of our joy, because we have love, joy, peace, long suffering, gentleness, right? So we, as having the fruit of the Spirit, and becoming and being joy, right? So becoming and being joy, right? How you doing, Anthony? Shalom to you. And we're talking about rejoicing, being joy, right? Revelation or revelation, that's what it is to rejoice, is to jump. Some persons would say, well, maybe it's to reveal. No, it was reveal, right? So it's become over time, you think what's to be revealed. We have this stuff being revealed in the scroll, but revelation is actually created, first of all, it's the Chashvash revelation given to him with Elohim for John to give to those who are going to observe and do the law. That's what it says in verse 1 through 3. But it's not written to everybody in specific. And so these are ways of governance. And those of us who have joy, mount up on eagle's wings, right? Joy, don't let the world get you down, have joy, right? This is talking about you. It's a way of governance though as well. And then you have a fourth one who is the lion, right? Lion of the tribe of who? Yehovah. So you have another thing talking about informing us of the sun. You have the son of man, but you also have this fierce lion, but then also too, you have this family attached. You already had Israel mentioned in these four beasts, right, as far as culturally. Now you're talking about even Israel as far as Judah. So Judah talking about a specific. So now we're getting into southern kingdom. Now we're getting into a particular family. Now we're getting to a promise that goes back to the throne. Now we're getting to the same throne that's mentioned through David that will be there in Revelation. Right? So this is why being grafted in to this family will behoove. So we're going a lot of places with this, but yeah, ultimately we're talking about these things. Some of these things even considered beasts, like Leviathan, is actually positive. Leviathan, it works for the Most High. Behemoth in the Bible, positive, works for the Most High. Both of those, by the way, are dinosaurs. Some would say Leviathan is a dinosaur, more like Mosasaurus, with huge. Some would say Leviathan is a super crab, right? Huge. But either way, we're talking about Leviathan, and that's the Greek word for it too. But Leviathan is extremely important. And so is Behemoth. Behemoth, you would consider to be more like a Brachiosaurus. Or if you were taught wrong back in the day and you believed there was a such thing as this, too, because of somebody messing up or lying to try and put a fossil together, maybe you thought it was a Brontosaurus. No such thing as a Brontosaurus. I remember when I found that out when I got older, I was so upset. I thought I was going to be a paleontologist at one point in life. Right? I love animals, but I really love dinosaurs. Like that was my first. You know how you have like your first animal loves, and you really like an animal. Like first animals I really was looking at was, we're dinosaurs, but there's no such thing as a Brontosaurus. Littlefoot, he existed in the movie on. You hear what I'm saying? Littlefoot, he existed in the movies only. He was never a real thing. They admitted that a long time ago, but they didn't want to. Just like if you grew up with Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park had the raptors, and you think the raptors are like as tall as you, right? Now there are, I guess, there's different types of raptors, but the raptors that were displaying different dinosaurs called raptors. Those raptors are like this. Which still would be scary if they had all the stuff that they had, but they definitely were, I think they were like the size of turkey roaches. So those raptors were moving from this. Down here, that's what you were dealing with. And all those things, right? But I remember growing up being like, there's no Brontosaurus, right? But persons be lying a lot, and then don't tell you, or they get stuff wrong a lot, then they won't tell us that they got stuff wrong. But anyways, part of the government, part of the beast, right? That is supposed to be deceptive. So you do have governments and beasts or so-called monsters in the Bible that we're supposed to look at and be like, oh, this is Yah's way of government. Also, too, though, you have a beast, right, that you shouldn't be taking marching orders from, or you should be aware of and how they operate too, right? You have two main beasts that you should talk about, and a third if you want to add the Satan in. But you have the Satan, mentioned in Revelation 12 as the serpent, saying, right, he's now grown from what he was as a serpent in the garden. Right? He's not the same. Right? But he's slithering upon the earth. He's been kicked out of heaven. Right? He's slithering upon the earth realm, but he's still dangerous. He done grown. He's deformed because he's going against the Most High, so it's kind of easy to see him, pick him out now. He has a slither. He ain't got no legs, no arms. Doesn't make sense for too many creatures out here to not have legs and arms. But he doesn't have any. He's been cursed, right? We can see him for who he is if we look at it through the right prism as far as that beast is concerned. Also, too, though, he has out of the water, out of the people that serve him, who hang on every word of his mouth. Revelation 13 tells us the beast that is basically the earthly version of him. It's the things that govern you here upon the earth. And we talked about that recently with the 7 heads of it, right? You have Kemet, Assyria, Babylon, Persians or Middle Persians, Greeks, Romans, and now Christianity, right? Really, which has always been Christian nationalism. These are the things that we were told to watch out for, and to make sure that we were ready for as far as governments. Now, also then the second beast in Revelation 13 that you must worry about, the third beast, that the third main beast is talked to you about, is to make sure that you recognize, wait a minute, also this beast has a second beast. And this beast knows how, right? This government, this second government that's supporting the first government, that's just an extension of what's been going on since Babylon, since Kim and all that. You call it Christianity, but it's the same thing, right? It's just under a different name, doing the same thing, having the same results, same type of slavery, same type of mindset, same thing telling you Israel doesn't exist, same thing enslaving the same persons. We've seen the same story over and over and over again, right? However, what we see now, once we get to what we see now as we get to Revelation 13 is the second beast is come. And just in case persons start to see, wait a minute, like why am I know what Satan looks like Revelation 12. I know that he's tried to off Christ and he couldn't do it. I know he tried to off Israel and they couldn't do it. I know now he's going after the remnant. And the remnant have an opportunity to get out so they can't be God either. Right? But then there's a second beast. There's a second way of governance that comes that you might not think about, right? You call even the Antichrist, even though it was really not the Antichrist, it was more like the Antichrist spirit. Paul speaks to the Antichrist, whether you think of it to be one person or one people or one organization, really the Antichrist is just the reflection of the Satan. Bare minimum. Whatever your argument is over who it was or where it was and all this stuff, we're looking for certain things. Now, we even know the number of the name, the authority, which was a human being on earth. We don't necessarily know if that's the Antichrist. But if you know the number of the name, how to put that together, how culture works, how all characters have numbers attached, you would know how to go ahead and figure out who that is, not only in Hebrew, but in Greek. All right? With that being said, even when we go through continuing in this concept and in this context of this thought process, right? We have to recognize and realize, we have to recognize and realize that this second beast is extremely crucial, and we should recognize it because it says this. It says that it has the horns of a ram. Here it is. And thank y'all for the love. It says that this second beast has the horns of a ram, right? But also, not only has the horns of a ram, this second beast has what? What is the second thing that it said? Revelation chapter 13. This second beast has the horns of a ram, but something about his mouth should make our antennae pop. A lot of persons' antennas don't go up because they don't study or they're not looking at that or whatever the way that they should. In Revelation chapter Revelation chapter 13, watch this. And I beheld and I paid attention, another beast coming up from out of Aratz, from the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb. So this is a baby lamb who is a male, right? A baby male lamb. Sounds familiar to somebody? This is a baby male lamb. We're looking for a lamb, according to Revelation, the lamb that was slain, right? The one that's allowed to open the scrolls, the Son of the Most High, the innocent sacrifice, the one who is the sheep, while being the shepherd, while being the high priest, right? While being the judge, while being the father, while taking on your sin, while being a living sacrifice, while being the bread, while being the way, while being the truth, while being the light. Right? Okay. Well, here we go. Here's a second lamb, or beast, that looks like a lamb, right? 2 horns like a lamb, but he spake. Amen. I saw you guys write it. Thank you for writing it. And he spake. When he spoke up, he spoke like a dragon. Ooh. Yeah, when he spoke up, when you listen to what he says, he spoke like a dragon. Who was presented to you as a serpent or a dragon in Revelation chapter 12 is the devil. So the devil has a beast, a government that came out of his people that operates the way he wants to operate. He is the puppeteer, right? Whether or not you want to say he's the one who has literally come in and taken over somebody's body, he probably could be in somebody's body right now. We don't know. He ain't trying to let you know like that. That being said, he has followers who are, remember, even Genesis tells you, there's enmity with the seed of the devil and the seed of the Most High Yah. Means that just because you're born out of the womb of Eve, or so-called Eve, doesn't mean that you are, in fact, the child of the Most High. This is why Romans chapter 8, verses 18 and 19 specifically says what? The suffering of this present time, right? Which is a choice that we make. The choices we make and the things we choose to go through, the suffering of this present time are not worthy to be compared to the glory which shall yet be revealed. Why is it not worthy to be compared? Right? Because the next verse says that not only, right, it will be revealed in us. We as the children will reveal the glory of Yah. So whatever's happening to you that's not of his glory, just keep on hanging in there because it's going to reveal his glory through or inside of you. And the next verse, verse 19, says that the creation is waiting on the manifestation of who? Of the children of the Most High Yah. So once we manifest, as far as what Yah has promised and said that we would be, since Romans chapter 8, verse 29 through 36, basically, through 37, through 38, through 39, through chapter 10. Once we manifest, there are persons that are created who are not the children of the Most High because they are not born again, they are not adopted in, they are not Israel by blood, DNA, and most definitely, right, the main one that is going to have to be there for everybody is they are not followers of the law. They don't care about the law being spiritual, not the spirit of the law, but the law of the spirit. The law was always spiritual. The law was always holy. The commandments were always holy. How you doing? Is it Tazor Yahu? Not sure how you pronounce. Thank you for being part of the community. Right? It was always. So when we see this beast, this second beast, which we know is out there, but we don't talk about it as much. This second beast is, if you read, it says it's designed to magnify and lift up the first beast, and therefore to lift up the Satan. That's what that second beast or that second government is. So that means that the second government, the one that is really the power behind the throne, the one that really actually has more authority because it lifts up the first. It's faithful. It believes in the first government, but it actually has more power in it. But it humbles itself to it, and it also is there to do the bidding of the devil. This second one is what we might call, even though it's not a great apples to apples comparison if you know what the actual word, the actual etymology of it is, but this is what you would call religion. Right? Now religion, everybody technically has religion because it's religion. What is a legion? A legion of persons that are fighting or doing something for the same cause, right? And they do so well that there's a government or there's a way of governance that even has to happen around them. They're able to raise up money and all that. Allegiance is crucial. Almost around 5,000 soldiers is not quite 5,000, just what we round up to, but almost about 5,000 soldiers make up a legion, right? And then that includes persons that are walking around, and persons that feed them, persons that forest slaves, all types of stuff that would be around. So these legions, per 4 or 5 legions, you had a slave. Right? So chattel slavery is not around yet, but slavery is very romantic. Right? But long story short, talking about the legions, we had to recognize and realize very quickly that when we're speaking on the legion, right, when we're speaking on what y'all have, when we're speaking on what's supposed to happen, a legion is a persons who come together as one. To re-legion, it's just repetitive in that. This is a legion again. We redid a legion, right? We renewed the legion, re-legion, right? Repetitive legion, over and over again, right? Coming together, fighting for the same thing. So if somebody is drinking water today, and I'm drinking water with you, and we do it every day, right? Especially if we believe in the same value of the water and all that stuff, you would call that religion or religion. It's a religious experience. No. I get it because act is part of actions. Yeah, we need to get our actions together for sure, right? Because the result of the action, the acts that we've been doing, is what the action is. Remember, action is different. Action. If you know how words work, I know they changed this stuff on you, but whenever you have that suffix of shion or tion, cion, sion, it's the same thing. When you have that at the end, it's a very French or Latin way of saying this is a person, place, or thing. This is the result of the act, right? So when somebody says actions speak louder than words, action is actually the result of the act. Action is a noun, right? So what you're saying is if you do enough acts, they make you the action, right? So we, the action, are the results of our acts, ACTS, right? So, but saying all that once again, so we have to recognize the beast that we should be really looking at. One of the ones we should focus on more is the religiosity, right? The New World Order. What does the New World Order consist of? Hey, it consists of thought process as far as, first of all, anybody of any religion can be listened to by anybody. And while I say for the sake of fairness or the sake of argument or, whatever, should we be able to listen in conversation to most conversations no matter who it comes from? Yes. I would say most, not all, because some persons have some really weird conversation that we should make sure we don't have. How you doing, Sister Sabria? Right? That being said, what has happened with religion is persons don't recognize what we call religion. I'm just going to use the modern normal terms that we use, right? So using said terminology, religion has become something that's crazy. First of all, because it's become romantic again, Medo-Persian again. And persons don't know how you use religion to conquer. Well, we are affiliated with being Hebrews, with being Israelites, and therefore having law that we follow. So technically, you can say we have a religion, but we're going to use what modern persons say. If you go by the actual term religion, everybody has religion, no matter what you believe. That's why, forgive my word usage if we don't use this term good that often, but I've been using it a lot today. But that's why you have this song. You remember that song? Do you have good religion? If you grew up in certain churches, if you had that one of them hymnals, the green one, the red one, the gray one, right? Do you have good religion? Y'all remember that? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Maybe you went to churches that sung that or not. They were singing that because they were saying everybody got religion. But do you have good religion, right? Or do you have tabah? Do you have righteous religion, right? So everybody has religious practice. Once again, if you're going to go for a run today and somebody going for a run today and you drink water and they drink water and you eat healthy and they eat healthy and you go to sleep and they go to sleep, guess what? By definition, you share religion. So it's not religion per se that is the issue, right? But the reason why we hate religion is because religion has not become, as we were talking about yesterday a little bit, religion is not discipline, right? So what used to happen is persons were honest about religion, right? Persons were honest about it. We become so dishonest and trying to cover stuff because now persons have more information. The more information we get, the more we can start looking at your morals and immorality, and persons saying morals didn't exist or morals were different. No. Morals were always morals. And so what has happened is that the same thing happened in Rome. So let's just make Rome simple, because a lot of people, we simplify this way too much when we have this conversation about Rome and Christianity, and we jump straight to Constantine, and we don't know about Constantine's daddy, and we don't know about the fight that was happening, and we don't know who actually came up with the term Christian. But I'll just use Christian because persons just go straight there and want to have an argument there. How you doing, Brother Craig? Right? You said before Jesus was born, who is my God? I don't have a God, because in Hebrew language, the word God means is a person, is a human, right? God in Germanic deity says that you can worship whoever you want. Now, before you even had a letter J introduced into the English alphabet, right? It didn't exist, so it couldn't have been a Hebrew name, because Hebrews don't even have a just sound in Avda or in Iblik or in Hebrew, in the original. Yeah, right? And even the ones that are in modern Hebrew are not Hebrew, they're just other things being adjusted. So no Hebrew speaking person would ever dishonor the Most High by calling him God, because God is a Germanic word that means whatever you want, or God in Hebrew is one of the 12 children of the Most High, of Israel, one of the 12 children of Israel. All right? That being said, I worship Elohim. And Jesus, Jesus means half man, half Zeus. Right? So if you didn't know that, Pegasus is the horse of Zeus. Dionysus is the son of Zeus. Demetrius is the daughter of Zeus. Perseus is son of Zeus as well. Zeus is Zeus. Well, guess who Jesus is? Or even if it's Jesus, if you're using a different dialect of Greek. We're talking about half man, half Zeus. It's not, that's a demideus, and that was a nickname given to him by somebody who believed he saw no fault in him, and he gave him a Greek title, therefore a Greek nickname. So if you want to say maybe that's the nickname, but if you ever want to know who he truly is, you should actually learn his name. So before there was a person that was a half man, half Zeus character that you guys have manipulated and stuff in the New World religion, and said you can kind of worship whatever you wanted before they changed all of the titles of all their ancient pagan temples to now saying they were Christians. Christians not meaning that they were dedicated to the law, right? That they mixed iron and clay. They didn't care about the clay, y'all being the potter and we being the clay, but you can't dismiss the clay according to Romans chapter 11. You can't dismiss the clay according to Romans chapter 3. You can't dismiss the clay according to Revelation chapter 7. You can't dismiss the clay as far as Revelation chapter 12. You can't dismiss the clay as far as Jeremiah chapter 3. You can't dismiss the clay as far as Isaiah chapter 9. And the list goes on and on and on and on and on. All right? So if you mix the iron and clay together, the Bible warns us about you in Daniel chapter 2, where the iron represents Rome, right? The Rome is representing the clay. The romantic viewpoint is what you come up with that leads you to Protestantism, that actually came out of Roman Catholicism, that came out of Rome being the western part of the empire that was given power to the first bishop of Rome, and that leads you even to Daniel chapter 7, the last of the beasts, who has diverse lusts, diversity, lusting for all these different things, all these different powers, changing person's perspective, changing definitions, changing word uses to make it match something that they want or that they need or that they say has to happen. Right? So, yeah, before you came up with the word Jesus, we had Yehashua, or some people want to call him Yahusha. There's a different dialect. Some people want to call him Yahuwah. Yahusha, Yahushai, or Yahushai, or Yeshua, right? Or Yeshua, right? Whichever way you're pronouncing it. But you know that is our Messiah. Yahashua is our Messiah. And before somebody changed his name or tried to get us to bow down to the diverse spirits, there's only one. So this is why we have to get to a place that there's only one. The more we learn about it, we're learning more about the oneness. The word oneness is holy, chakodash, right? Put a W before that H. If you want to be holy, you got to be integral. You have to have integrity. You got to be one, right? That's the problem with a lot of these belief systems, is that you are so interested in being integrated that you've never actually you're so interested in being integrated that you'll take anything that sounds like integration, but integration means coming into oneness. So if everybody has a religion, and I'm not here to tell you that I don't respect the idea of freedom of religion, but I don't think persons know what stuff means. If there's true freedom of religion, it means you are free, and what we mean religion. People don't realize what these words mean. So when you hear freedom of religion, you guys, whether you're talking about denotation or connotation, what happens with a lot of us is that we hear freedom of religion and you believe, hey, everybody, I should live in a situation where everybody should be able to worship whatever they want. And I'm not saying this should be on the penalty of death. I'm not saying we should just start fighting persons. I'm just trying to give you a simple definition, right? So a lot of persons will say, right, that they want, how you doing, my brother TJ? A lot of persons will say they want freedom of religion. Well, freedom of religion, cool. That means that if everybody has it, that means nobody should have to believe the same thing. If nobody believes the same thing and has confusing ideas of thought processes, right, and comes together to build, you know what other city besides the United States of America, besides London, besides all these different places, or England, besides, modern places, do you know what place in the Bible persons that had very confusing belief systems but came together as one to basically say that we're going to erase anything that's actually holding us accountable so that everybody can just crash out and do whatever they want? You know where that is in your Bible? It's pretty easy to find. Right? Well, Balaam doctrine is the doctrine that gets us away from talking about Israel specifically. But that's right, Babel. Babel is where the languages were confused because the people came together in confused states, but said, hey, in our chaotic state will be used to help us to build something. Chaos helps us build to get to a place where we can destroy the Most High. That was the goal. So Babel was the place where all the confusion came together. But it's still confusion. See, persons go like, oh, we're all one. You're integrated into confusion. So confusion to you has become holy. Right? Like for them, they have a holy day. The holy day is called Christmas. We know that Christmas is against the Bible, according to Jeremiah 10:1-5. And just straight up, when we have Santa Claus, deer, all these other things going on, mistletoe. Why are you under the mistletoe? You understand that mistletoe is a parasite, but also is I think a female spirit. Could be a male spirit. I could be wrong about that. But it's a spirit nonetheless. So it's supposed to come over, and it's supposed to be something that's over sexualized. And they would have orgies during this time, right? They're afraid of the change of the sea. You're not supposed to do this stuff, but it's their holy day. They come together as one, and they bring a lot of confusing belief systems, and a lot of them don't even know where it is, and that's the way the enemy wants. He wants it like legion. He wants it to be inside of you, so that you would have a religion. You would continue to have all these spirits warring in you to the point to where you have no control, or Yah can no longer have control over your life. That's right, they're living life backwards. Right? If you live backwards, that's evil. Right? E-V-I-L, reverse that bad boy, right? E-V-I-L, reverse it, L-I-V-E. Right? Right? But if we take this, if we just say in the English language, or our language, right? If we just go ahead and say this, right, in English, we'll discover that if I just take live, L-I-V-E, and reverse it, it's E-V-I-L. And a lot of persons live in reverse. This is how these things are spelled out to you. Right? But we don't recognize. So yeah, I have to know how to live. And if I know how to live, anything that's backwards of it, I should recognize as evil, or achiva, or iniquity. So this is what's happening with the beast. The beast, going back to what we were talking about earlier, the beast is designed to get you further away from your natural self, from your nature. How you doing, LJ? Right? Right? So it's designed to get you away from your nature. You don't even think about your natural self. You don't have a relationship with food. You don't have a relationship with each other. How is it that you can come on, and I'm not trying to be mean to us or whatever, we at SOC, obviously we're making more of we're more dedicated to this than others might be, but how is it that persons can come together virtually with all this stuff, march together with all this stuff, right, go to your surfaces, all this stuff, and then you still don't know who your next door neighbor is, right? So we think that that's integrity, but the word says at some point the goal is for Israel not just to have service, but to become a nation again, to live with each other, to use each other's businesses, to make sure that, like, if we ever came together, no matter where it is, if we came together and realized that that's where heaven meets earth and that's where everybody needs to be grafted into, the second that happens is the second that you ain't worried about your money. If there's 5 million of y'all living together, I'm gonna just tell you how the game works. If there's 5 million of you living together, and all 5 million of you converge upon place, right? Especially if you talk to the government when you're around. But if 5 million of you just decide to go somewhere, you're a nation. If you brought your clothes, if you brought the rest of your money, whatever it is, if you brought your seeds and began to plant, wherever it is that you decide, they're not moving 5 million. Can we, I'm just being honest, right? Especially if you, look, all you have to do, if 5 million persons decided today, if Israel, and that's a little piece of us, that's not all of us, if 5 million, but I'm here to tell you that even if you did 500,000, matter of fact, I'm here to tell you if you did it with 50,000. Matter of fact, I'm here to tell you if you had 5,000 persons, if you had 500 even, if you had 50 families, maybe not persons, but 50 families, could you imagine 500 families? Right? But if you had 50 families that said, we're going to come together, we're going to grow food, we're going to make our own clothes, stuff like that, then that means that you have everything you need. If you said, we're not going to get anything outside of our 50 families, everything that we do, some family has to be trained, right? There were 12 nations of Israel, and there were 12 things that every family had to do. Then 2 more were grafted in, right? You had Ephraim and you had Manasseh. They had to have something too, right? And then eventually Caleb did what he did, so he had to have something too. Like, this stuff was mapped out, right? And all we had to do was what we were there and have within our own lanes, within our own stuff, under our part of the umbrella. Then you have another part and another part and another part. And before you know it, this family tree, grafting and otherwise, grows and grows and grows. That's the mindset that we should have, right? So the beast has become so created that he's used his governments, right? When the power he was given by the people of the Satan, right? And he actually has more power because the Satan recognizes the power of those that really want to become this second beast, to have this ability to rule over others, and to do so through the cloak of so-called religion. Right? Through the cloak of so-called religion, you have been given an opportunity to have to be filled with contempt. I'm not trying to speak this over anybody. This might be a warning to somebody, right? If the shoe fits, wear it. If it doesn't, take it off. But I'm here to tell you, for many, going to college, and some of you who are thinking, I need to go to college for this. There's different colleges, by the way. We got a university too, by the way. But if whatever college you go to, especially these ones that are in the world, the design is not for you to become free. The design is for you to become as close to enslaved as they can get you. As close to enslaved as they can get you. I apologize. This is supposed to be Q&A. Right now, I'm venturing off a little bit. I apologize. I hope, Sister Shirley, just please bear with me. I told you I was waiting until you came on, and I'm going, but I can't let this go. I'm trying. I really am. I'm trying to stop. But watch it. The colleges and the stuff that you have gone to, or even the teaching, the elementary school, all the stuff. I swear I'm trying to get out of this. I can't come out. Listen. I'm trying to slow myself down because I want to say 7,000 things. I need you to comprehend and to recognize and to realize that for many of us, what's going on. For many of us, no, don't, not you, Sister Don. I'm talking about me. I'm trying to stop, but I can't. It's just heavy on me. I feel Holy Spirit resting in this. It's like I'm trying to pull something, and it's like, no, we ain't going. I'm trying to move, and it's like, no, it's not time to move yet. Okay. So culture-wise, mindset-wise, thought process-wise, we don't even have a thought process of that this beast. Once again, we're not in our nature. So what happens is the second beast, the one that is the so-called religious beast, it actually is stronger than the regular beast, right? This is why no matter what, I don't care if you was Obama, I don't care if you was Trump, I don't care whoever you were, what do you end the State of the Union address on? Right? God bless you, right? And God bless the United States of America. Why do they say that? Because that's religion, that's Christian nationalism. Regardless of if you just finished telling everybody that your so-called God is somebody who's different, you still have to be in Christian nationalism. But the persons don't know that Christianity is designed to allow as much stuff in as possible. If you study every Roman Pope, if you study the bigger the organization gets, if you study Joel Osteen, if you study T.D. Jakes, if you study whoever, you'll recognize and realize after a little while that you have to ensure that part of the programming is that you can make sure that you fit in with as much stuff in the world as possible while feigning independence from it. Right? 501c3s telling you how they are higher than the government. Think about that. I don't want you to think about that. How are you 501c3 higher than the one who you have a contractual obligation to appease in order to get where y'all want? You literally teach persons, right? How are you teaching persons to be against the law while those who are marrying, who you are marrying, preachers, law, like Malachi chapter 2, verses 1 through 9, preachers, right? Ezekiel chapter 34, preachers. Hey, preachers, right? Preachers, how are you preaching? Revelation chapter 2, verse 14, preachers, how are you preaching to be against the law? Meanwhile, the only reason why you were reverend and the only reason you could marry somebody is because you went through the state, you went through the beast. You see the confusion? That everybody has become one under. The beast is the same. Watch this. Okay, let's put it like this. All right, if the word beast means government, we're holding on to this term, right? The word beast means government. I still didn't even get to monster, actually, with the rain, right? But the word beast means government. Right, hear this, beloved. The word beast means what? Government, okay. So, the government, the same beast, the same government that tells the preacher who's a Christian that he's allowed to marry persons is the same beast that tells the artificial person over here, the judge, that they can marry persons who, right, and that's part of the corporation, right, under the same corporation, the same beast who gives that person governance to marry somebody is the same person that says that the Muslim can marry somebody under whatever religion they want as long as they serve or they are ordained under them, right? If that Muslim preacher is ordained by us, that means under our law, then we'll go ahead and allow that Muslim preacher to marry you. If that Buddhist preacher or teacher or priest, etc., right, says that you can go ahead, right? So just like the beast has to say what halal really is, right? Well, the beast gets to tell the Buddhist who is Buddha. And how do you get married into Buddhism? As long as we say how. Now, I need you to catch this because this is how the beast is operated. When you were in Rome, who did you have to go to for your marriage to be official? They said that you could be, look, Romans told you, the French persons, the French, even though they still speak very Visigothic, they also speak a lot of Latin in their language. Why? Because they were very romantic. They were a puppet state for Rome. As long as France did whatever Rome told them to do, France got to chill out and didn't have to worry about stuff, right? So, but that means that when you go to France, you call it very romantic. Why? Because everything that's in France is a lot of it, not everything, but a lot of it is still attached very heavily, not just to the Visigothic ways, but also to the romantic ways. The way that they put somebody on the throne. That's why it was so crazy when Napoleon, when he off the Pope, and then went up and then he crowned himself, right? And didn't have a priest do it. He was saying, I'm breaking away from what? From being under your jurisdiction. So Napoleon's had to be so powerful, he had to become somebody, he was still whack, but he had to become so powerful that he could fight not just his enemies of France or those against him becoming the emperor of the world, that's what he really wanted, but also too, he had to be able to fight against some of his own people that were put there with romantic sensibilities working for the Roman Catholic Church. Right? The Pope used to say, right, the Pope did the same thing that Rome did. If Rome conquered Greece, you can still be Greece as long as you bow down to us. Rome conquers Greece, and therefore conquers the four heads of the leopard. The four generals that took power after Alexander the Great. When they conquered Egypt, which is Ptolemy, when they conquered the Ptolemaic dynasty, they said, you can still be the Ptolemaic dynasty, just make sure you pay us what you owe us. That was part of the reason why they would fight against Cleopatra in the first place. But they had put them there in debt to give them tribute or give them some kind of tithe or tribute. Why? Because you're saying we're the king. So you can still be Egyptian, you can still be Greek. You can still be Egyptian, part Kemetic, all the stuff you want to call yourself. Call yourself whatever, just make sure that you put us first. It's very romantic, it's very beast-like. That's how the government works. Right? The same government that tells you that you can get married today and get a divorce tomorrow is the same government that says if you're going to get behind the wheel of a car, you better have a permit, and you're permitted to learn to become licensed, right? But they won't make sure that you go through training to get married. The government says, therefore, it's better for us. There's more money to be made by a safe driver than there is a safe husband. Come on, Holy Spirit. That's a come on. That's a word. Somebody catch that? Somebody catch that? There's more money to be made in safe driving than there are safe marriages. There's more money to be made in being a safe driver than there is in being a safe wife. They'll train you for driving, but they won't train you for marriage. And you're not seeing that part. A big part of this is to make sure that there is control. Right, divorce makes more money. Matter of fact, if you know, not only divorce courts, but the child support courts, which can be sometimes one and the same, at least in the same area, right? But the child support court over the wards, because that's what your children are, wards of state, and they get to award or reward. In other words, say if we reward the child or reward the child's time or whatever to you, they're saying that they're our ward, but we'll reward, we'll redesignate them to where you need to check in with us. That's why your parents, and if your children call the police on you, the police a lot of times are coming in looking to take the child away first, and you got to disprove what the child is saying, even though the child can be lying out there behind. I'm not saying we should get away we should not have our children checked on, but I'm just saying, right? They're out of order, but there's more money in taking your child than there is in letting you raise your child and training you we're training you properly, or making sure you're trained for marriage, right? There's more money. Watch this. There's more money in making sure that they're safe. There's persons who know how to safely give you the tattoo than there is in making sure that you're trained. The same government that has licensed your minister, that has ordained your reverend or ordained your elder, ordinance means law. And they say it's safer to not even make sure that your preacher is trained. Just make sure that the preacher that your preacher is under, they can do whatever as long as y'all check in with us. We'll let you put whatever title on yourself you want, as long as you'll always be under our jurisdiction. As long as you'll always preach. This is one of the reasons why persons hated that Obama was running for president. I think it's the first time, and I forget my man's name up there, but the guy was in Chicago or Illinois, wherever he was, and he gave that sermon. I don't remember all the sermon on top of my head right now, but he gave that sermon, and everybody was like, ooh, he was eviscerated. He was saying this, he was saying this. They didn't care whether he was right or wrong. They were like, yo, you're supposed to, this dude is going to be the dude out of your church. We put this together. Like, this was supposed to be on a silver platform. We're supposed, this guy Obama, he's going to run for president. We're setting it up to where he's always been a faithful church, because they always set up a story for you, right? So we're setting up the story. And he's been a faithful member, and he loves the Most High because he's got to have a Christian value. But he goes to a black church, so he's left-leaning, and then here it is, you say something, and it sounds like something that's against what the Democrats want to vote for at that time, right? He said that's why that whole thing popped up. Is because if you are the religious figure, you're supposed to be not the beast, the first beast of Revelation 13, you're supposed to be the second, lesser beast that really has more power. And when you start preaching something that's against us using this to push the Satan, then you are somebody who is, now we start getting to a place you're starting to come out the artificial, and we're starting to get to that other part of the question, what is a monster? A monster by law. Now we're getting the Black's Law Dictionary. Now we're getting into legalese. Now we're getting to what they call stuff on the earth realm. A monster by definition in the West, and this big, huge beast of the West that has influenced the whole nation, that really is an influence of all these different world powers that existed before under the same serpent, right? This so-called monster, a person is a monster to the system, means that if one would go against their system, see, in Revelation, the beast, if it's the governance of Yah, right, can make us persons to where we have eternal life. But in the world, those who are against the beast of Revelation 12 and 13, right, against the Satan, his main government, and his religious folk, right, all of them have the same religion. They just call themselves different things, but they work together and everything, right? So all these persons who are with the devil, who have the number of that name, 603 scoring 616, when you talk about Hebrew Greek, you get to a place where you realize very quickly, oh, okay, like anything that's against them is a monster, right? What is a monster in their beast? What is a monster? Even the beast has different monsters. Even the beast has things that make them afraid to close their eyes at night, right? Right? If you don't know, even a lion has nightmares. Something will make a lion get up in the middle of the night, right? You can have a junkyard dog. It's the craziest junkyard dog you ever seen. There's something that'll make that junkyard dog wake up in his sleep. There's a sound that makes that junkyard dog not just stand to attention, ready to fight, but ready to leave, right? And that demon, that devil, that old serpent, right? This crazy, these crazy imps, these people who want to be like him, who worship him in many different ways, they even have things that they're afraid of, and according to their system. And according to their system, according to their system, they haven't said, oh, you have, you still got a drink? Did you finish the drink? No. Okay, you got a drink in there, so if you want it. Your door's open? The door's open, right? Yeah. Okay. If you want the drink still in, I don't know if you eat the food's in there too. Where was I at? I'm sorry, I'm taking the drinks and food. The second beast. The second beast has things that scare it. And what is one of the things that the second beast is written into law? The second beast is written into law. You said Jesus warned you about fools like this? Yeah, and you still talk about Jesus. You don't even know what Jesus means. Half man, half Zeus, right? If you can tell me what body shot means, then you can call me a fool, you probably don't know what that means. So if you can tell me the characters, what it means, then you can call me a fool. And even if you call me a fool, I'd rather be a fool for Christ than be whatever you think wisdom is. Right? Knowing the truth about Yah and Yah himself is the beginning of all wisdom. You seem not to have it in this particular phraseology. Right? So, but yeah, so in all these different things that are going on, that are happening, right, we have to realize and recognize very quickly that, we have a lot of different things. You heard something? Okay. We have a lot of different things that are going on, and as far as religiosity, as far as thought process, we have a lot of things that are going on as far as what persons, say, or what persons are doing. We have a lot of things that are going on as far as righteousness. How you doing, Minister Keita? I'm gonna try to call you if I can. Or I'll try to call you. I'll try to call you today. I got a lot of calls to make. I'll try to call you. But yeah, I'm sorry. Where was I at? Where was I at? The serpent. But yeah, the second kingdom, whatever. They're afraid of you. If you, according to legalese, according to Black's Law Dictionary, if you ever become a natural person, not just on paper but in life, you're considered to be a monster. Right? Matter of fact, if you look up human in Black's Law Dictionary, which is the most widely recognized and used dictionary in Western law, if you look up the word human, Human, you will discover that a human man, according to them, the definition just says SEE space MONSTER, which means see, look for, monster. Look up the word monster. How you doing, Sister Moody? So when you look at this term monster, right? What you'll discover is by law, a monster is one who does not deserve rights. Why? Because if you ever are a natural person, right? If you're actually a real human being, according to the law, you are monstrous to the system. You can cut it up, you can tear it apart. Right? So our goal is to make sure that we are get to live in human beings. We get to be free of the system. Right? This is one of the reasons why we talk about feeling free to go ahead and homeschool as much as possible, or trying to get together, or trying to build some stuff up, or supporting what Sister Carla is putting out there as far as teaching our babies and stuff. We're trying to do that because not just to make somebody's pockets fatter, which we don't mind, but also too, the responsibility and the goal that we have is to make sure that we as people continue to grow and move with the proper natural levels. Yeah, there are many persons, that makes you a threat to the system. So we as Israel, literally a threat to the system. Why? Because what is the system built off of? According to Psalm 123, verse 4, right? The system is built off what? You being filled with contempt for yourself, you being on the bottom. Matter of fact, let's do this, right? Sister Shirley, we're kind of talking about what you were asking about yesterday, but if there's a specific way you want me to go, let me know. But we're already kind of talking about that as it is. And welcome to everybody. Shalom to everybody. Shalom to all the babies. Revelation 122 and 123. Right, when you read the word, by the way, and you realize who it's talking about, okay, excuse me. When you read the word and you realize who this stuff is talking about, you start really comprehending that a lot of this word actually, it reads like it's it's revolutionary, revolution, right? It reads like revolution, right? It reads like, like something has to change, right? It reads like revelation. So when we set up these systems, right, when we set up Yah's system, we're setting up something to go against a whole bunch of systems that combined are only really allowed as long as we do not become a nation. But let's read it. Just to read it. How you feeling? Feeling all right? Go ahead, stretch some if you want. I guess when Mom comes back, if you want, you got the. I saw you a little bit, but you might have to ask me to do it. But if you want to, basketball. So, in the venue. If you want to go over there, I don't know if you go fill up if you want to read something. But, and Shalom, Sister Jennifer, Shalom to everybody. Peace, peace, peace. So we're going to read Psalm 122 and Psalm 123, which is the third and fourth steps. And the song of steps, or the ode of steps, or the ode of degrees. If you don't know this, if you read Psalm 120, that's the first step. Psalm 134 is the 15th step. And these are 15 steps that we're supposed to take through the temple of the Most High, or in this sense, at this time, not even in the temple, more than likely, but taking these steps further to further ourselves in the movement what God wants us to, right? So Psalm 120, I'll just read the beginning of it. When you read Psalm 120, and it says, in my distress I cried to Yahweh, and he heard me, right? And our distress, first step, we come to him. Right, next step, Psalm 121. I will lift up my eyes to the hill from which cometh my help. My help cometh from the covenant, he who made heaven and earth. That's step number 2, to recognize who made heaven and earth, and make sure that our steps are guided by him. We came to him because all things were going bad, but we knew he could make things correctly. Number 2, we make sure we focus in on him on these steps. However he orders our steps is where we go. Now watch how this starts to move in the system we're supposed to build. Why do we need to build this system? Right? Psalm 122. Matter of fact, can you do me a favor? Can you read this? It's really small, right? But can you read this for me today? Psalm 122. Just read one verse at a time. Read Psalm 122, verse 1. Read it out loud for me if you can. So just verse 1.
I was glad when they said unto me, let's go into the house of the Yahweh.
Yeah. That's it for verse 1?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So verse 1, I was glad. What? I was glad when they said unto who? Me, the person. Right? So this is the third step. Now I'm glad, right? When I take these first 2 steps, I become glad when they say to me, let us go into the house. Now what does the word house mean in Hebrew? Right? Remember bits, house, it means son, it means family, it also means what? House. So I was glad when they said to my family, right? Now I'm taking a step with my family. Let us, not just me by myself, what? Go into where? The house, the family of Yahweh. This could be whether you are Israel, this could be whether you're being grafted in. But I was glad, happy, excited when they said it to me, let us go into the house of Yahweh. All right, what's the verse 2 say? Read out loud for it. Psalm 122, verse 2.
Our feet shall stand within thy gates, O Jerusalem.
Our feet shall stand where? So now, who is he talking to? Definitely. Who is he talking to? If our feet shall stand within thy gates, right? Whose gates? Whose gates? The gates of where? Of Jerusalem, right? Jerusalem, who lives in Jerusalem? Israelites, right? Amen. Thank you, Brother Brandon. Brother Brandon said you're doing great. Right? So our feet shall stand, right? Our stance shall be within thy gates. Now, once again, we got more knowledge because of this Bada Shot series we just did. Where is it that heaven meets earth? Where is Padanaram, which will become where Israel is? When Jacob has the dream, does anybody recall what the name of that place was? Right? Does anybody recall what the name of that place was? Right? There's a very famous place in the Bible. Starts with a B. How you doing, Sister Tabitha? The name of that place was Bethel, Batam, right? So Bethel is where heaven meets earth, where children of Israel will be, right? Okay. So our feet will stand within thy gates. We're talking about the people, all right? Old Jerusalem. We're going to stay somewhere, right? Okay. What's the next? That Bethel is the promise where Yah promised Israel, and covered Jacob before Jacob got married. All right, what's verse 3? Psalm 122, verse 3?
He will not. Oh, wait, hold on.
Psalm 122.
Jerusalem is built as a city that is compacted together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so Jerusalem is built as a city that is compacted. To compact something means to make it what? To make it smaller, right? If you had compact computers back in the day, if you remember compact for a little bit of time, it probably still exists, I don't know, but for a little time it was popular. Compact, they were trying to say, hey, we'll give you something that's smaller and supposed to have same amount, if not more information, right? That was part of the thing. So compact, to make something compact. So Israel is a compact nation. That means that we're supposed to come together. We've been spread out by different circumstances, but what is the goal of Israel? Anybody who's going to be part of Israel, anybody's going to be grafted into Israel, anybody's Israel by DNA, anybody's Israel by blood, anybody's Israel by law, etc. We're supposed to come together, compact, right? And how you doing? I saw somebody come on. Oh, Sister Shima. Hey, how you doing? All right, let's keep going. Let's read Psalm 122, verse 4.
Read whether the tribes go up, the tribes of the Yahweh into the testimony of Israel to give thanks into the name of the Yahweh.
Right. So when we go up as tribes, and really this word would actually be more like the nations or the sons of Israel, right? But they use this word tribes here, so we know what they're talking about. So these tribes or these nations, when they go up, as they go up, they are supposed to go up specifically as these tribes or nations or these branches or as these nations go up. The goal is to make sure that whatever we do is to give God praise. Right now, like I said, it's going to start. If you haven't caught it already, it's kind of reading revolutionary, right? When we go up, when we go up against the enemy, when we go to the high places to take down the foolishness that they put in the high mountains, etc. But watch this. Watch how he's reading. Psalm 122, verse 5.
For there are set thrones of judgment, the thrones of the house of David.
Okay, so it says, so there are set thrones of judgment? Right. And then the thrones of the house, the family of who?
David.
Of David. David is Judah. Judah is the lineage that is kings of Israel, at which Yahashua will be born into that family and be adopted into the family of Joseph, Joseph being Judah. Okay? So, there's a particular family, there's lineage. This stuff is important. We're going to raise up. We're going to raise up the standard of the Most High Yah. And while raising up the standard of Yah, right? While raising up the standard of Yah, how you doing, Brother Cole? So while raising up the standard of Yah, and thank you guys for oh, okay. Yeah, we might get in trouble for this part. It's okay today. They've limited the live session on this channel, but it's okay that they did because technically he's too young to be on the live session, but that's all right. We're going to roll with it today. They already had us limited today. So whoever this is for is who this is for. I ain't tripping. I'm going to just go ahead and put it in. They won't let me speak on it. But that's okay. All right, anyway. So let's keep on going. Praise y'all. All right, so let's keep on going. I'm not even mad at that one. That is what it is. That's their policy. And I know why they had a policy. So yeah, but let's keep on going. So we have Psalm 122, verse 5 or verse 6? Verse 6.
Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. They shall prosper that.
Verse 6. Verse 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. They shall prosper that love thee. Yeah, it's hard to see that. Okay, they shall prosper that love thee. Pray for the peace. Now everybody always goes, pray for everybody's peace. And by the way, we should pray for the peace of the places that we're in. But why are we praying for them? Pray for the peace of who? Of Jerusalem. Right? It starts with the Shalom of Jerusalem. If Israel would be blessed, then all would be blessed. If Isaac would be blessed, then all would be blessed. If Abraham would be blessed, then all would be blessed. If I read verse 8 for us, Psalm 22, verse 8. Or Psalm 122, verse 8.
For my brethren, in the companion's sake, I will say, peace be within thee.
Okay, so for my brethren, for my family's sake, for my family's sake, for Israel's sake, I would say peace within thee. Let's work for peace within ourselves. What's verse 9 say?
Verse 9.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the house of Yahweh, I will seek thy good.
Okay, so for the house of Yahweh, because of the family of Yah, for them, I will seek what Yah says is tabah. I will seek what he says is righteous, right? I will seek what he says is tabah, right? Instead of good. Good meaning God, God meaning what the world views as whatever they want to worship, but we would seek what is tabach, right? What is of Yah. All right. So now go to Psalm 123, verse 1 for me, please, sir.
Okay. Into thee lift I up my eyes, O thou that dwellest is in the heavens.
Okay. So and it's unto thee, but okay, that dwelleth in the heavens, that lives in the heavens, right? So unto thee. So after all this, right? Psalm 122 is the third step. Now we're in the fourth step, Psalm 123, and it says on this step, I start off with saying, hey, unto thee, unto Yahweh only, right? Am I going to look for as far as how I should live, where I should live, etc. What's verse 2 say? This is revolutionary now. Verse 2.
Behold as the eyes of servants look into the hand of their masters, and as the eyes of the maiden into the hand of her mistress, so our eyes wait upon the Yahweh our Yah until that he have mercy upon us.
Right. So the mercy we're looking for is coming from who? Who's the mercy we're looking for coming from? Yahweh, right? So the mercy we're looking for is not coming from man. The steps that we're taking are not for man's sake. We're looking for mercy to come directly from Yah. When we set up the teaching, when we set up the atmosphere, the goal is for us to start looking at setting up an environment for the babies, right? When the babies that are able to make, whether virtually or physically, we hope as many physically as possible. And when these babies come together for camping, you're going to see a light switch change, right? You're going to see them start to play. You're going to see them like be very interested in each other. You're going to see them even do some things that they're supposed to. You're going to see them even be kind of given a little more leeway than maybe some of you are. We're not going to go far away, but give them a little bit more freedom. And you'll see in the environment will start to correct. The environment will start to cause, like, persons around will start to get into, when these children are around, you'll start to see and hear and realize very quickly, like that these children, they want to interact, but also they're looking for something to be some semblance of leadership. You'll see that some of them are going to come in, including, my very own, that might come in with some things that they've been learning on YouTube and things like that, but when they're around each other, those things kind of get sucked out, right? You're creating an environment to where Yah is the goal. Our mercy, what we're looking for, our holiness, etc., is not coming from each other, it's coming from the Most High, right? You'll see it with the adults. That there will be certain things that you might not. Okay, all right. There'll be certain things with the adults. No problems with the Shirley. There'll be certain things with the adults that you'll see that will start to kind of settle themselves, right? That adults will start helping out in certain ways just because, that they'll start looking for stuff to do, right? That the elders will be taken care of automatically. That, looking after somebody, being like, hey, where's so-and-so's child? You'll see a lot of these different things start to happen just because we're one, we're together. We stop, right? And you'll start realizing you stop worrying about work stuff, you stop worrying about bills, you stop worrying about this, because in that situation, we're number one, we're all together. You're coming together with a person that believe what you believe. You're secure, right? You're being given affection correctly. Men are being respected to do what they're supposed to do. Women are being respected to do what they're supposed to do. All the different things. You'll start seeing we have free time with each other. You'll start seeing that even, when you go to sleep, you sleep a lot easier out there, right? You'll see that when you come together to pray, to doing this stuff with persons who are like-minded, and then you'll start seeing when it's time for you to leave, you'll start going, oh man. Now a person says it's vacation, whatever, but I'm telling you, it's a different sense when you come together. When we come together and we do this, it becomes something that we realize, oh, this is the goal, this is the mission. Remember, we're supposed to be reminded not only of where we used to be in the wilderness, but if the goal is to come together, we might not necessarily be sleeping in tents, but we'll be coming together again at some point to live with each other, to live before the Most High, to have all things be taken care of, and not really even worry about stuff to the point, if you're living together, like I said, if you get 500 persons together, if you get 5,000 persons together living together, you don't really worry about what President Trump's talking about. Imagine it's 5 million. You have 5 million, you have 50 million. You have 500 million persons that live together and say, this is where we are no matter what. Who cares what government says, right? You have 500 million persons who have taken time out to teach each other, to grow with each other, to protect each other, right? To be willing even to die for each other. Who cares what a Republican or Democrat says. We're too powerful at that point. And if we ever get that thought process in our heads, right, that the free child is greater than the other type of child, yeah, we'll be able to move mountains. Thank you, sir. My son's up here directing stuff. I'm proud of him doing this thing. Yeah. So but yeah, like, so when we get to that place, it's difficult to come against what y'all has for us at that point. It's difficult. But the more we do this, the more we operate, the more we give. This is why, once again, even tribute or tithe is not just finance. It's not just some treatment money. Even though money is necessary to get what's real, right? The goal is to get what's real. If I'm telling you, make it a goal. Especially SOC, some of y'all have been SOC for a while. You know these names, and you know persons that come up on Zoom. And right, those of you who are newer to this, okay. But some of y'all been around for like 5 years at least. Some of y'all been around for 6 years. So day ones. Some of you go back to when the old YouTube channel was there, right? So some of y'all been around for a minute, right? Some of y'all, a few of you, not many, but a few of you even know us from being in person. Some of you might even know me going back to 2004, 2005. That's very rare, but that still does happen, right? So if you are one of these persons who are part of this community, the goal is, by this time, try to see if you got 20 names in your phone. I'm not saying you got to talk to them all regularly, but see if you have 20 names of children of Israel in your phone. If you sister and you only want to do sisters, fine. If your brother, you only do brothers, fine. And maybe there's something else to talk about with your spouse and things like that. Or we can talk more about parameters as far as that, make sure we protect in certain ways. But I think everybody should have enough kingdom sense where we should know how this operates. And yeah, talk to each other, learn of each other, question each other. You don't have to give everybody your information, have a conversation. So protect your stuff, protect your babies. You don't have to tell somebody all your babies' names to be able to still become part of the community. Right? You don't have to have your baby show up at the first interaction you have with somebody who's living within 15, 20 minutes, an hour, or whatever. Right? The babies don't have to show up. Right? I know of plenty of persons that, not just the babies, before they would let their wives show up, they showed up. But when their wives showed up for something for the first time, they made sure they were there. And I have no problem with it because that's your responsibility, brother. Matter of fact, I'm glad that that's your first instinct rather than just be like, yeah, whatever. That's your first instinct is, okay, she's going to Feast of Tabernacles. We've had this happen several times. You're going to Feast of Tabernacles, you're going to Pastor, you're going to whatever. Okay, I'm showing up. Right? Or I'm going to show up to something this Negro do and I'm make sure that he's actually living how he's supposed to live. Right? So that's why we have this stuff. That's why we're trying to make sure persons are part of our groups. That's why we're making sure we're sharing more opportunity. That's why we're going to do some stuff that's about conversation.
Oh.
That's why we're doing that stuff, right? That's why we're having all this stuff come together. Yeah. So go ahead. What's verse 3? So let's go to Psalm 122, verse 3. You go ahead. Go ahead.
Have mercy upon us, O Yahweh. Have mercy upon us.
Psalm 122, verse 3. Is that it? 122, please?
Yes.
No, sorry. 123.
Have mercy upon us, O Yahweh. Have mercy upon us, for we are exceedingly filled with contempt.
I got the phone.
That's why I am trying to
Good job, sir.
come see you.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, great work. Yeah, my fault. What is it? 123, verse 3. So have mercy upon us. Have mercy upon us. And the part that I really want to focus on is at the end, why do we need mercy? Because we are filled with contempt. Right? When you feel with contempt, right? When you have contempt, not just even doesn't even say yet, even though it's inferred contempt for yourself, but when you feel with contempt, that's a little different, right? So now read verse 4. Thank you. And we've been reading Psalm 122 verses 1. We've now read through the end of Psalm 123. 123 verse 4.
Our soul is exceedingly filled with the scorching of those that are at ease, and with the contempt of the proud.
But you got the copy.
Yeah. So the contempt of the crowd. So once again, so look at this. So read the first part of it again. Just read till I say stop.
Okay. Our soul is exceedingly filled with the scorching of
The
those
scorning.
scorning.
So watch scorning. Scorn, you know what scorn is? So scorn basically means to be looked at the bottom. So when somebody says that they're scorned, right, when you hear what's the saying? Something has no fury, hell has no fury, like a woman isn't scorned or whatever, but it's saying she's scorned. It's saying she's on the bottom. So you talk about hell has no fury. It's not just talking about every woman. It's saying if you really want to see what's some crazy word, in other words, see that a woman who basically has been treated on the bottom now has nothing or whatever, or feels like she has nothing to show for it, but that means that society has helped her to get there, right? So we kind of just go, oh yeah, women, every woman. No. Look for a woman that's really been in a situation and see what she'll do, right? But yeah, to be scorned means to be on the bottom. So if somebody's looking at our people as we are nothing just because we are us, that means we're scorned. But you have to fill them with contempt, right? You have to be filled with contempt for yourself. Now read the whole thing again. So Psalm 123 verse 4.
Okay. Our soul is exceedingly filled with the scorning of those that are at ease and with the contempt of the proud.
Amen. With the contempt of who? Of the proud. So proud persons are filled with contempt. Now watch this. Those in the system that are proud to be where they are, who are they filled with contempt about? Right? Those who are at the scorn, the bottom. Who are the scorn? According to Psalm 122, 123. You, Israel. That's right. Looked down upon. Thank you, Brother Brandon. Right? So those who were looked down upon are who? Are us. Right? That's what I'll read. So Psalm 122. Thank you, sir. If you have something to say, you want to read some more, feel free to. But Psalm 122 says, I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into who? The house, the family of who? Jehovah, the Lord. Our feet shall stand within thy gates. Who? Where? On Jerusalem. Right? What are we talking about? Verse 3, Jerusalem is built as a city that is compact together. We're supposed to be together. You're not supposed to allow just anybody and everything in your stuff. Everybody who's coming in, we have to make sure it's compact. We got to fill you out. We got to check you out coming in. We got to become a nation. Verse 4, whether the tribes go up, right, or whether the branches, the nations, the people who are going to fight, whether we go up, right, the tribes of Jehovah specifically, unto the testimony, lawful term, whose testimony, right, testimony of Jehovah, to give thanks unto the name of the authority of Jehovah. Verse 5, there are throne set of judgment. We should be looking for judgment. We should pray for peace, but who? The peace of Jerusalem. Everybody be up here. Now look, I'm not saying don't pray for your enemies at all, anything like that, but hear what I'm saying. You guys will see, oh, pray for this, pray for that, pray for your leaders. We showed you in the Bible already. Pray for your leaders doesn't mean the leaders of the world, right? We're not praying that Donald Trump has his way. We're not praying that President Obama has his way. We're not praying that Abraham Lincoln has his way. We're not praying that George Washington, what he wanted, has his way. Because they all against everybody for real, but they against us. Real talk, right? So that's not my prayer. I might pray, hey, before, and there's nothing wrong with this. Some of you might not like this, but, I might pray, hey, you know what, before Trump dies, I pray that he has a real shot to be able to hear the word, hear the truth, and get his life in order. I'm not going to sit up here and be like, yeah, I pray that no matter what happens, that you let Trump get what he wants. But there are persons that teach you and I to do exactly that and tell you that that's in the Bible. It's not. But the goal is to pray for Israel, and really, why are we praying for Israel? Because Israel is supposed to be the only nation that even though we did some stuff that was wrong, let's not pretend that we're without sin. That being said, we're supposed to be the only nation that ever exists that was created specifically on the laws of Yah. And if they're universal law, universe means what? A single spoken sentence. Who spoke the sentence? The Most High. So that's right. So we know who spoke the sentence. We know his name or his authority. Remember, name is authority, right? And even if you're looking at this esoterically, right? Even if you're somebody who's only looking at this esoterically, right? You still have to realize, because you guys live by all these other myths. Some of y'all live by the Matrix. Some of you live by Star Wars. Some of you live by a lot of stuff, right? So you guys live by myths. Some of you live by Superman. Some of you live by Superman. Yeah, some people watch Superman and stuff, and they're like, oh, I learned it. And you can learn from stuff, but they're like, some people go by a lot of stuff in the forest, or some people watch the Matrix, and they're like, oh, the Matrix told me so much about life, and there's a lot you can learn, right? So I'm just saying, even if somebody doesn't believe what we believe, that they can still learn, right? Even if I don't believe what somebody else believes, well, thank you. Yeah, I can still learn. Yeah, if somebody doesn't believe in Yah, doesn't mean that I can't learn anything from the matter. Right? It just means that we don't have a belief. Oh, thank you. That means we just don't share that belief. You know, yeah, and keep on trying to tell them. They might not get it at first, and they're living in an environment where they might not think that they need it. I see. Yeah, I was just responding to that. You see that too. So our goal is and so our goal is to look at that. So it reads fair. So when we're setting up any system, yeah, that's kind of crazy. But anyways, like I said, yeah, they got this one because I'm allowing someone to be on this one today. We already broke the rules to a certain degree, so I'm not tripping. But thank you guys who are still on with us. We appreciate you. So look, at the end of the day, we have to be in a position. So we got a little bit more time. How you doing, Varkis? Not sure. But thank you everybody for being on. We appreciate you. Any other Q&A? So yeah, it's important that we get these beasts to these systems, know what a beast is, know what a system is, know how it works, know how it operates. Because then you miss a whole bunch of stuff. Once again, if there's 3 beasts and you don't even know what they are, if there's 1 beast with 7 heads, you don't know who the 7 heads are. Like this is not just, even when somebody calls it allegorical, it's allegory kind of hard to take life in because if you know what they're saying, even if you know, once again, we talk about the number of a name, we have that in our classes and stuff, but a lot of people don't know when it says the number of a name gives you 600, 3 square, and 6, you can already, with culture, start to eradicate a lot of stuff, right? Like if somebody says, oh yeah, it's 6 electrons, 6 neutrons, 6 protons, okay, thank you. So 6 electrons, 6 protons, 6 neutrons, you will realize and recognize things. You will realize real quick that that's not even something that's feasible because a lot of, once again, we talked about earlier, how people lie to us. How many of you have actually? I'm gonna ask a simple question. It's gonna sound crazy, but I'm gonna ask a question for a reason. How many of you have actually seen a neutron? You said your question was not addressed. Okay, I apologize. If you want to write it again, I missed it. If you want to say it again, I didn't see it, but we were still kind of answering 1 or 2 just now. But I will try to answer it. I'm sorry I missed it. If you can put it up there again for me, if somebody can put it up again for me, I appreciate it. But once again, how many of you have seen an electron? I'm sorry, not an electron. How many of you have seen a neutron? How many of you have seen a neutron? Right, I'm going to answer the question for you. The reality is that none of you have seen a neutron, but you think that they exist. Now, do you know why? The theory of neutrons, and how you doing, Coco? Do you know why? Right, 0. Nobody's ever seen a neutron. Like literally, nobody has ever seen it. The reason I say this is because you believe it exists. Okay, all right. Or did Mom tell you to come out and leave the thing in there? Did she? I'm just asking for a reason.
Just
Okay, stay in there. I'm gonna tell you when to come out there. So stay in there for a little bit. It's almost finished, but we're gonna be active. In a second. So neutrons. Yeah. Okay. All right. So the neutrons. Neutrons only came up because of a theory. Now remember, you were raised. Some of you still believe this, but I'm trying to just show you how we can be raised on some stuff that's foolishness, right? So this is why you think a neutron is real. We know that protons are real. Okay, we know that protons are real. We know that electrons are real, right? And how you doing, Kamaludin? Thanks for being part of the community. We know this for a fact. Protons are real, electrons are real, these subatomic particles or atomic particles are close to atomic, whatever, forgive me. But they're real, okay? That being said, we know they're real because we started, human beings started making them explode. What do you mean, right? That's why you have your bombs that started picking up is because they started realizing that they could isolate protons and they could isolate electrons. They also used to have a theory that they haven't taught you is now broken. But they used to have a theory. The theory goes like this. The theory is that all mass and all energy exists forever. Right? The laws of the universe. It's supposedly the universal law. It's not what Yah said, and apparently it's not real. But that's what you were taught. Now allow me to go ahead, if some of you are like, oh, he done lost his mind. Allow me to go ahead and present this to you. You look it up to see if I'm wrong. we started exploding protons and electrons. And we were taught that mass always turns into energy, or energy will always turn into mass, but it cannot stop existing, right? So that means basically like anything that ever happens is only because certain energy continues, certain mass continues, nothing can be added, nothing can be taken away. That was what we were taught. Problem with this is that they were having these protons and electrons explode, right? The problem is that we have these protons and electrons that explode. Okay, I'm sorry, Sister Deborah. I see we trust DNA testing. Okay, I'll try to get to that in a second. So, should we have the protons and electrons explode? Or, I'm sorry, when they explode, what happens to the proton? What happens to the electron? They tried to trace it, and what happened is that they couldn't find any traces, energy or mass-wise, of the explosion. Right? That means that when they made a proton explode or the electron explode, that means basically the energy got lost. Or the mass was supposed to turn to energy. Sure, the mass, the explosion caused energy, but after that, we don't have any mass. Right? Which means that when they were teaching you and I that all mass has to turn into energy and all energy has to turn into mass, they were teaching that off of a theory. They found out that that theory wasn't true. But just like the theory of gravity that was disproven, right? Sir Isaac Newton's theory was disproven, and he had stolen a lot of the information from Imhotep and stuff like that. He admits it. That being said, his theory that everybody says is his theory of gravity, right? What is gravity? Gravity is a theory. What is gravity? Gravity is a theory. It's a theory that says not only what allows us to stay on the earth, but it's a theory that says what allows you not to go to the left, or to the right, or up, or down, and float, whatever. If you float, why do you float? These are all theories of gravity. Gravity does not mean just that what goes up must come down, right? That's not what gravity means. A lot of you think that that's what gravity is because you have not read the theory of gravity. The theory of gravity, once again, it's not even his theory, but he's giving credit for it. Sir Isaac Newton. The theory of gravity is a theory that says that not only what goes up must come down, but what stops me from floating, what stops me from going to the right, to the left. Why do I keep moving to the right? Why do I keep moving to the left, etc. Right? The stuff like a motion set in motion stays in motion until something stops it. All that stuff. That's part of the theory. Okay. Now, so the theory of gravity with this place, right, was disproven by the theory of relativity. Albert Einstein, that's why he became popular, is his theory, knocked the other theory out. So even in stuff, we don't know what theories are, why they were brought up, what parts are still kept, if they still actually exist or not. So we just call stuff the theory of gravity, not realizing that that theory was actually disproven because, yes, we already knew what goes up must come down, right? But that's not what the theory of gravity is about. So gravity is not, so the theory of gravity has been disproven. That being said, same thing here. If a neutron, right? The only reason there's such thing as a neutron is because they could not find protons and they could not find electrons after the explosion. But they had told everybody for years, just like when Einstein displaced, a lot of people fought against him because they wanted to keep making that money of the theory of gravity. Well, same thing. They still don't really want to come out and tell you, oh yeah, energy can be lost, or energy might not be able to be tracked, or mass might not be able to be tracked. But it definitely on the protons and electrons. And we're like, we can't find the protons. Somebody was even trying to say, well, maybe protons become electrons. Well, that's not happening. Or maybe electrons become protons. That's not happening. We can't trace it and track it. Which, if we be honest too, doesn't mean that they might not trace and track it someday. I'm just going off of the theory. So what happens with neutrons? Neutrons is a theory. There were eventually 5, what we'll call them men, they were kind of boys, but some of them were older. So you had five guys, ages 15 up to 25. And they used to work on stuff together, and they work in the lab. And they finally, everybody's trying to become the next person to solve this theory. It's becoming a problem, right? They're teaching a person something that's been disproven. So what do? These boys come up with a theory that says, well, what if there's neutrons? What is a neutron? A neutron can't be seen. See the theory? Watch this. They talk about conspiracy theories. This is a theory. Watch this. Conspiracy theory. Or this theory. These 5 guys said, what if we can't find electrons turned into protons, or protons turned into electrons because it's a neutral space. So if there's electrons and there's neutrons, or protons, we just say there's neutrons, neutral. Nobody's ever seen one under a microscope. It's a theory. And persons even try to say, well, we see something bouncing off of this energy-wise, so maybe that's what the neutron, nobody's ever seen one. Then they came up with another theory, if you've heard this term before, called neutrinos. Neutrino is basically supposed to be the thing that neutrons are made out of. They did a test to see if this theory could even be correct, or somewhat correct, and they actually did an experiment where they sent they sent this thing around that was supposed to be neutrinos, and they basically had this thing where supposedly, even though it probably goes through, but they said it goes supposedly around the Earth, circles around, picks up speed, and eventually makes this. In this lab does exist. I don't know if the machinery you're talking about does, but there's a lab that Japan has that is 100% like clear, clean water, gallons that go down like levels. Like if you were in a high-rise building, and the gallons keep going way down underneath, like a high-rise building, and it's just supposed to be for like clean, pure, never touched by human hands or anything living as much as possible outside of H2O. Right, that's their goal. And they shoot stuff through it to see what pictures of it, what it looks like, especially if they think that something can go faster than the speed of light. They want to see what it looks like when it starts to slow down. Now, they believe that there were these neutrinos that were just running at the speed of light, which means they're not supposed to be able to move, which means that we shouldn't be able to track it anyway. So they were trying to make an excuse to say, well, maybe this is what a neutron is, based on the so-called neutrino. Problem is that they had that happen, they actually ran into other problems because they realized, wait a minute, there's stuff that's proven that it's moving faster than the speed of light, because if it's at the speed of light, it should be still to us. But when it hit the water initially, the first few frames, it should be going at a certain speed. We saw it moving, meaning that it's actually possible that something can move faster than the speed of light, and it still be something that actually can somehow, in our world, make sense. Right? Long story short, if you don't get what I'm saying there, is that they had questions about eternity that popped up, because wait a minute, we could see something moves faster than time itself. At least we thought that if it was faster, which brought up other theories. A lot of persons never thought about this, but they don't want you to, because this is the scientists talking about how does Yah work. But the scientists said, instead of thinking about always time going from the slowest to where it pauses, he was like, what about the theory on the other side where there's light and stuff moving faster than the speed of light, and it actually slows down? Meaning that if somebody can go faster in time, come and do something and come back, right? So anyways, I'm gonna stop there because I know that's getting a little further. But there's a lot of stuff, this conversation that goes on in these theories. That being said, the only reason a neutron exists or a neutrino exists is it's a theory. They can't figure out why what they told you doesn't work, right? That theory has been broken. And so rather than just come out and say, hey, we were wrong, and all the stuff we have it based upon doesn't make sense, what do? You got to keep selling them shirts. You got to keep, you got to keep teaching that curriculum, right? Your curriculum is based off of something that's not factual. So you have to make excuses or bring another theory along and say, yeah, well, this theory was wrong and this theory was wrong, but maybe this theory will be right, and if it's right, it makes all of the other theories right again. All of those things, none of them has been proven. So I'm saying all that to say, like, you could be in a situation where you're trained on something, not just worship, not just the spirituality, even science, where these scientists are telling you stuff and they're stringing you along. Like we talked about earlier, somebody asked about the earth. I'm not here, as a so-called flat earther, I don't believe the earth is like a pancake. That being said, the scientists of today, even, what's his face? Who's the guy I was talking about earlier, the black cat, Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's come out and he said too, hey, if something is spinning at a certain speed over and over again, it begins to do what? Spread out, and it begins to come together. Now, I don't believe flat like a pancake. They're not saying flat like a pancake, but they're telling you, yeah, this thing about if something's going to spin like that, if we believe that, we can't say the world's round anymore. And also, NASA has admitted to you guys several times, you've never seen an image from space that has not been messed with, that has not been manipulated. Whether they talk about color, whether they talk about, even they've done shapes, they talked about how they made things look like the nebulous that you guys think stars are born in. They admit that you've never seen an image. Not that they don't show anything, they don't have any ability to see space at all, but every image, whether it's for scientific reasoning or not, they say they have to manipulate it because they're trying to use it to show you what the person is they say. So I'm just saying, if these things are coming together, there's a possibility that we have to at least just say, okay, the stuff can't be exactly what they taught us, right? Like if they're coming out now and literally, if we have articles in the 1900s, if you are a United States citizen, you have articles where persons in the early 1900s are still being jailed because they're teaching what? Not that the earth is flat, they're teaching that the earth is round. It wasn't even knowledge that was supposed to be taught in the 1800s and 1900s. Right? Remember, the persons of Kemet, they believe, regardless of what shape you think the earth is, they believe the sun goes around the earth. The Bible believes the sun goes around the earth. I'm not here to tell you, I haven't been there. Right? So can I say I got the scoop on whoever, but I'm just saying both sides are giving you theories. And you automatically just go on with one, acting like, yeah, this Latin theory, or this Greek theory, or this so-called, I don't even want to go there for this conversation, that so-called white theory is correct just because these persons said it. When the reality is they theorizing just like you. Even if you believe that Yah, who I serve, is theoretical. Okay? Well, the Big Bang, so-called Big Bang, is theoretical too. We're still having a theoretical conversation. Right? That's why at some point I say, even if you don't agree with me, let's come to a standard. Right? Is there a standard for morality? Is there a standard for success? Is there a standard for law? Is there a standard for legalese? Is there a standard for marriage? If there's a standard, right? Even if you say, because I've said this before, if somebody disagrees with my belief system, fine, right? If I happen to be wrong, let's just say I'm wrong. If I'm wrong about everything I'm teaching you, what did I teach you? I taught you to love each other. I taught you to have your own. I taught you to speak your language. I taught you to have culture. I taught you to hold up your belief system, even if it's wrong, whatever. I told you to do stuff that's for you. I told you to have success. Prayerfully it helped you to get along, or some of you are going to join us on a journey for us to grow together and have food of our own, land of our own, success of our own, etc. Right? Those are the things that I taught. If I happen to be correct, though, then that's a problem for some. So I'm just saying, either way you look at it, I'm thinking that if somebody would say everything that I'm doing is wrong, that it's pointless as far as evolution type of stuff, well then if I'm wrong, I just told persons, to be better in certain things, But I still believe that on your way out, you still should treat people with respect, even if you say, well, there's no heaven or hell. Still treat somebody with respect. Right? There's no heaven or hell. Okay, eat right while you're here. There's no heaven or hell. Okay, let the earth last long. Right? But what if I'm on the correct side? So anyways, now we're going somewhere different. But long story short, yeah, with that, that's what we're speaking on. So when we build this stuff, we have to build it with the mindset, the correct mindset of realizing that they taught us a lot of really wrong things, and they're doing a lot of heinous activity, including continuing to teach stuff. Just like when you go to the hospital, it's still in nursing books. They still learn to this day, even though it's known to be wrong. To this day, if you go to nursing school, anybody going to nursing school, CNA, CNT, doctors, etc., somebody, I know some of you are backing me up on this. You can back me up again if you like in this moment. But recall, it's taught in nursing books still to this day that if you are a black person, let alone a black woman, you don't feel pain to the same level that other people do. It's taught as a fact. I'm not making it up. Like, that's taught as a fact. You go to Georgetown, it's taught. Right? Doesn't mean they might say, we don't believe this anymore, but they haven't taken it up in books. It's still in the books. And yeah, like, black women don't feel pain. Right? Well, why did they even teach that? When they were literally doing experience. So women, you guys know the whole contraption that they use on you with the gynecologists and stuff, that was something that they were experimenting on. And before it became the thing that still hurts you, right? It still hurts you when they use it on you. But before they were using all that and everything, they were forcing black women down and tying them down. They would say they didn't feel pain while they were screaming. They would say they weren't human. All those different things, right? Just like when they were, I only use this word once, but when they were raping our women, right? And they would sit there and say, Thomas Jefferson would finish raping them and say, oh, well, they don't really, they're ugly. They're disgusting. They're hairy. They're smelly. They have no mindset. They're only designed to serve us and stuff like that. But he would say that they were unattractive. Meanwhile, you got all these babies with a whole bunch of them. Why do you say that? You say that to be like, oh yeah, I never tell. They don't mean nothing to me. While you're married, and they're literally the slave. The main one that we know about, sounding hymns, was half sisters with your wife. Meaning there was some crazy stuff going on, right? But that's the one we know about because they wrote that one out and they tried to make romantic stories about Thomas Jefferson was great, when he was just snatching our sisters up, right? Well, they were doing the same thing with you when they had your legs up on the stirrups, but they would even do stuff where they drill into you, they would pull stuff out, they would put wooden pieces in you when you were splintered on the inside, and all this stuff, but they had to say, what? Oh yeah, they don't feel pain, don't worry about it. When they scream, that's an animal scream, they like it. You even hear when they misuse stuff and they do that. Sorry to go here. If you got children listening, you might want to do this a little bit with them or whatever, but I'm going to just be real. I'll leave it up for a few more seconds before I say that. So go ahead if you need to step away real quick. I'm trying my best not to just say it right out because I know this is not for children. That being said, I know different ages listen. All right, here we go. So I gave you a chance, especially if you got a recording. You could have paused it by now. All right. So, like they do all this stuff. They got splitters on the inside of women, things like that or whatever. They're doing all these things. They're literally ripping, babies out or whatever, testing stuff out as far as how long they can keep a fetus alive. Oh, it's just a fetus anyway, so don't think of it as a living being, so you can continue to do all that. Remember, they had, I forget what the name of the law is. If somebody can, Elder Tamara always recalls what the name of it is, but I forget what the name of the the law actually is, but there's that law on the books. Some places it's still on the books officially, but it was on the books. It was like in the 1600s. So it's not even, don't even think close to the Civil War. We're talking about back in the 1600s when y'all say, oh, this stuff wasn't really in there. They had laws in the books already that, I forget what it's called, where white women, or really it was written for white women, but basically where a woman couldn't get in trouble for killing a slave. And the reason was because they were literally killing the babies because the babies looked like their masters. You know, they looked like their master because the babies were fathered, you know, by the master. And these babies, by the way, a lot of you don't know, some of these black babies actually won court cases to actually get the land over some of the white children, proving that they were actually, if they could get free enough, they could actually prove that they deserved access to the money if they were considered to be a free living being or freedom. So a lot of them went to court and actually were won. It wasn't, I won't say a lot, but it was enough where it was something where it was kind of people were getting afraid because if persons could, you know, start taking and snatching up the money, they couldn't keep on making child slavery what it was, or at least they wouldn't be the main beneficiary of it. So a lot of persons don't know all this stuff goes on. So Thomas Jefferson is having, you know, his father is already RAing these women, and Thomas Jefferson comes along and continues it, and he's even doing it to persons that are like his sister's half-sister, but that means that basically they related. So all the stuff, all the children's stuff, even including when we go, oh yeah, these children came out and they were saying some stuff where they were supportive of slavery and stuff like that, they weren't even all there. They were inbred, whether black or not. Okay, they were inbred, right? Now you can say they black with Thomas Jefferson, like, and Thomas Jefferson called our women N-word females, just like he would call our males N-word males. But you said nothing talking about, oh, he was just a product of his time. No, he was somebody who wanted to own as much, mistreat persons, mistreated his wife, mistreated the children. Like we talked about when we talk about Hitler and Stalin and all them, when you look at their quotes, they tell you they don't even care about the people. It's all about them, right? So everything, every policy, every doctrine that they come out with Jefferson, Washington, Madison, Monroe, Adams, they're coming up with stuff that's beneficial for them. If it's not beneficial to their belief system, they don't care, right? So I'm just telling you, we have this mindset of these persons, and we put these persons and these things in certain places, excuse me, where they don't belong, right? Right? So we put this stuff, that's why you gotta realize evil is evil, right? I don't care what it is. Oh, everybody's owned slaves before. Yeah, everybody who owns slaves are evil. You know? Well, what about what's his name now? I'm forgetting his name. Who's the guy? They made the movie about him. Although I know him more than that, I hate that I'm not knowing his real name. The guy who Forrest Whitaker played in The King of Scotland, right? That cat. Idi Amin. Idi Amin, evil. Somebody goes, well, see, that's the thing, that's the argument you guys allow yourself to get into because you're so black, white oriented. Person to be, all the white people that somebody brings out Idi Amin in an argument falls short. Evil is evil. If you're a black dude and you do me evil, right? I need to protect myself from you just as much, sometimes if not more so than the white dudes. But some of the white dudes, at least they'll tell me they're coming from. If we're going to use the social construct, white, black, etc. Some of the ones that we say are the ones we should be afraid of, some of them tell you outright. Like the person that gets bit by Trump by now, and you one of us, or you somebody that's kingdom, or you somebody that's leftist or whatever, if you're somebody that clearly sees what that cat is, and you still did what you could to raise him up to try and make money, or integrating the people who say that your people are the problem, and you can't see that you and the mayor are the problem, or that you're being used. I mean, you get what you get, right? I'm not going to argue. And by the way, if you actually get it together, you have to prove some things, because I can't just prove you, but if you don't trust you like that. But if you prove yourself over time to get yourself together, then maybe we have some conversation. But if you literally are going to be in a position where you're going to defend the persons who keep doing you, can keep doing your people dirty, and use you to be the frontline person to tell your people why it's trash, you don't understand how oppressed you really are. Right? And I'm not tripping off of that, but so much. Right? So but some persons are really caught up in that and continuing the evil and continuing the lie. All right, the other question that was up, thank you for your patience. The other question that was up, Barack Obama allowed homosexuality? Sure, all of them are precedents. Every president sets precedent. So anything that's going on with the system, they're preserving the union. And they do it against enemies that are foreign, but if you're an enemy and you're domestic, you're an enemy too. That's why you need laws to protect you, to allow you privacy, but if you're going to live private, let them do what they do. Make sure you're in a position to take care of you and take care of your family. I was listening to somebody yesterday. I forget what the brother's name is, but he was speaking on stuff and talking about how even every sovereign right? Or if that's what you consider yourself to be, every king, every private person, every person that's separated from the system, each one of us have to be in a position to do what? Each one of us have to be in a position to hold ourselves accountable and be held accountable, right? Like there's persons that come on these live sessions. I won't say who's who, what's what. You can look up stuff they were saying, or I just know from personal conversation. There's a lot of persons who were still in the mind of voting that were still out here telling me the first time when Trump came in, oh, he gonna do this and he gonna do that or whatever. And now they're the ones acting like, oh yeah, they were anti this, anti that. Just like with Obama, a whole bunch of us, including myself. I told y'all I voted for Obama just because he was black and I just want to see what's gonna happen. But when I heard him say he wasn't gonna do anything for black people, I was like, oh, all right, it's over, right? The illusion that he could possibly, like for me it was a slight illusion, but the illusion that he might possibly do something, that basically was the last kind of like, okay, you know, I put a little bit, I never really supported the march or anything, but hey, you know, I did whatever the vote is, how much ever that actually counts. And I was like, let me at least see what this dude's talking about. And when I saw that, I was kind of the last point in my life where I was like, all right, I'm not going to mess around with this anymore. The goal has to be to live a life that is not really mess around or press upon the system, or is not, you know, giving stuff that I don't deserve, or is sitting up here being worried about stuff that's not real, right? It took me a while to get to a place of doing that, but that's the rest of my life was like, okay, yeah, I can't, you know, 2008, 2009, whenever there was a made a statement, I was like, yeah, okay, I gotta be done. And I was disillusioned on the other side. When I joined the military, I was 17 in 2000. So from that point on, I believe, because of my military experience, prowess, and etc., like I was supposed to be whatever Bush said has to be whatever's right. That was my little 17-year-old mind. I was quickly disillusioned in that as well. So I fought on different sides of the aisle. I thought that America was the way growing up. I went to the churches that had the American flag all up through them, patriotism, chauvinism, because that's what chauvinism is. It's actually patriotism. So all this stuff, whatever, I had it. I tried to live by it, and I learned very quickly that's not everything they say is cracked up to be. Right? I'm coming back looking for you, Sister Deborah. I lost track of the question again. I see you think your question was addressed. Okay, should we trust DNA as the source? So DNA testing goes like this. DNA testing, you have to be careful about anyways, but DNA testing, if we say everything works out perfectly the way it's supposed to, no contamination, et cetera, et cetera. If you go to one of these places and you buy, 23andMe and all this stuff, or whatever, which by the way, they're starting to lose traction if you've been paying attention to them, even in the stock market, they're not what they used to be, and persons are catching on. But if you a lot of persons don't know that when you go to these places, you're not actually dealing with scientists, especially scientists that are specifically there to actually read DNA properly. A lot of DNA specialists do not believe that you can actually find out where you were from only by your DNA. Quiet as kept. Scientific facts that's not brought into the scientific conversation. So this is what I mean. If I just keep it simple, because I'm not the greatest with DNA. I'm starting to learn stuff because of the L1, L2, L3, L4, L5 variations, L0 stuff. I'm starting to learn as far as E1B1A, E1B1B. It's being close to O positive or whatever. But I go, DNA is not really my thing. Okay, like it doesn't really make sense all the way to me. I know it enough as far as family units and structure and different things that happen, and even if there is a such thing as genetic diseases and all the stuff they cause. I kind of know some of that, but I'm not obviously a specialist. I'm not going to pretend to play one on TV or on social media. I will say this, though. This is contextual facts to reveal truth. I will say this, okay? 23andMe, all this stuff with chromosomes, DNA testing, we're going to go a little bit over, by the way, only maybe 15 minutes over because it's Q&A day today. It's second Q&A today. So we'll be finished hopefully in like 20 minutes. The DNA, I will say this. So this is how it works, even if everything were to work out perfectly. You get your DNA testing, it says, I don't know, I'm gonna make up numbers. You're 10% British, you're 10% Mexican, whatever that is, which really wouldn't be a thing, but whatever, you're 5% Scandinavian, and then you're 75% original Ghanaian, okay, Mali. That's something that's very similar, or similar for a lot of you who've gotten them or will get tests. If you were of this ilk, a lot of you will have that. Of course, one of the things that they don't talk about as well is a lot of you are Native American as well, but they don't really know how to put that because they don't really have all the countries together, so they just kind of say you're American or you're European, not all of that actually works out correctly either. But anyways, let's just say everything works out perfectly. That's a perfect manifestation of your DNA, right? Problem with this is that the 75%, let's just go to 75%, most persons will say, oh, so I'm Mali. Problem with this is it's not a guarantee that you are of the bloodline of Mali, right, or that you're actually a descendant of somebody in Mali. What has happened is, and whether they messed up on the DNA or not, because they could have, but what has happened is that they have taken DNA from, through archaeology or from persons who have been recently deceased or persons who they have in their system, and what they do is they go, okay, we know that we have a bunch of DNA hits, right? Like it might only be 5, like if we say 75%, maybe you only have 15 out of 20 DNA hits that they have of you. 15 out of 20 that they found are in where were in the area of region where Mali was. So that's why they'll say you're 75% ancient Ghanaian or Mali, right? However, what they're doing is they're saying they don't really know. Are those persons we found, are they actually Mali? Maybe we know that, maybe we don't. But we know those persons were just coming through and something happened. We don't know. What about one person on the list that might make you, or that might make you whatever percentage Scandinavian? Was that person actually living there? Were they Scandinavian? Were they dark skinned? Were they light skinned? We don't know any of that. So let's say everything is 100% accurate as far as the DNA, which is a lot of persons will tell you technically you shouldn't use DNA to try and say this is where everybody's from, but that's what we're doing with eugenics, so we know how to do it if we need to. But for real, they say that's not the best indicator, right? So when you do these tests, right, we don't even know if the test can be trusted as far as, even if everything's 100%, does that mean those people who are there are from there, right? Like let's say you are, if you know what Wampanoag is, let's say you were Wampanoag, Northeast Native American in the United States of America. It was a big branch by the time that Squanto came back from slavery overseas. It wasn't as big, it still was major, and it still influenced a lot of different places. You know, the so-called Iroquois, so-called Cherokee, so-called, or not so-called, they're actually, the original name is no, that's not even the original name, so-called Choctaw, etc., right? So the Wampanoag is huge, right? Even Jamaican, a lot of people don't know the term Jamaican is not just for those in the island, but it used to stretch up. That's why you even have a place in New York called, named after Jamaica, right? So you have that there, not just because Jamaicans lived there, but because there were persons that are assumed to be Jamaican that were already there. And people forget the term Jamaica is an English term that they named the colony. It doesn't mean that that's what people call themselves. So they said they look like Jamaicans, they call it Jamaica. Right? Just like you said, they said, you know, you look like you're Dominican, you look like you're Cubano, right? That's one people, or Aztecs is not even the name of people. There was a land where those people lived that they called Azteca, and all of a sudden, because of what somebody didn't want to pronounce or call them in England, right? In what's the name of that dictionary y'all like to use as British? Oxford. In Oxford, so he just said all of y'all are Aztecs. They wouldn't have known what an Aztec was. They would have known where Aztec was, but they wouldn't have known what an Aztec was because they weren't Aztecs, right? They were Olmec sheep and other different things, right? That now the Incas are real, you know, the Iroquois are real, and stuff like that, but the Aztecs were never a nation. We just call them that because of what somebody put on. So you kind of have the same thing, right? Like there can be persons that are in an area and they live there, but maybe they're not original there, maybe that's not their area, maybe they were there when they passed away. Here's a famous one, the volcano, Pompeii. Those of you who know about Pompeii or Pompeii, depending on how you pronounce it, it was not only a man, it was a city, right? And the city is famous because it was a volcano that went off. The city was built near the volcano, I want to say a mile, 2 miles, not far from it, and the lava and everything didn't necessarily hit it. I think like it hit maybe pieces around it, but the people died because of the noxious gases and fumes and stuff that were there. And when they found the bodies years later, you can still see them like that over there, by the way. You can watch it online, whatever, to look it up. Pompeii, Pompeii. When you look over there, you'll see that the bodies are like in sleeping positions or stuff for protecting their babies. When everybody falls asleep, they look peaceful. And the bodies basically were entombed in all the decay and all the ash that fell down. It actually kept the bodies in place. So they're still like encapsulated in these tombs, you know, man, women, and children that were there. So if you were to come through and be like, oh, okay, well, I'm Pompeian because of DNA that they found over there. Let's say they found DNA and they said I'm Pompeian. You can't say you're Pompeian with any certainty because Pompey had a whole bunch of persons there, right? So you could have had African cousins, so to speak, coming through there, and they got caught up. You could have had Germanic cousins who were coming through there and they got caught up. You could have had slaves that were working there and they got caught up, right? So, if you're not careful, you'll say, oh, the most DNA I can find says that I'm Pompey, but that could be because there were a bunch of slaves there. You see, right? So you have to be careful. Now, even with that, right now you get into the other point, the other conversation. Like somebody just said, I'm 98% Nigerian. A lot of you might not know this. Look up Nigeria. Nigeria, as well as a corporation, but not just only a corporation as far as what we talk about with the United States. A lot of you don't know that Nigeria was not called Nigeria. Do some research. Just like Ghana wasn't called Ghana, the modern Ghana is not the original Ghana. It was renamed, but it was renamed by Africans. That being said, it's not the original Ghana. So when you say Ghana, you got to ask people which Ghana. Like I'm Ghanaian, and I actually have family that's part of Mali, the original Ghana, but also too, to be honest, I'm Ghanaian too, being Ashanti, meaning that I have people who are of a different nation, but they began to call themselves Ghana after England gave up rule and Kwame Nkrumah and others took over and renamed that region, that corporation. So what's called Ghana today is not actually Ghanaian as far as ancient times. If you talk to an ancient Ghanaian, they wouldn't have thought anything close to being part of Ghana, because Ghana is what was owned by England. All right, well, same thing with Nigeria. Nigeria was actually literally a corporation. If you don't know this, Nigeria, literally, look it up. Nigeria was a corporation, right? It was actually named something different. The person who was over the corporation had his wife and he had a side piece. Okay? The side piece told him that she liked the idea of naming the corporation Nigeria based off of Niger, kings in the area, whatever. Right? That's why they called you the other N word eventually, because of play on who you originally called yourselves. But she told, during chattel slavery time, she told her, she was the side piece, so whatever you would call him. She told him, hey, rename it Nigeria. That's why you call it Nigeria. The corporation it was originally called still has a heavy hand in all the politics that are done to this day. Right? So when you say not Nigeria, Nigeria has a whole bunch of nations. You say Ghana, you're talking about a bunch of nations. Right? Right? If you come to Ghana and you talk about me, you talk about Ashanti, you talk about Shwe, right? If there's Ashanti Shwe as well, you're talking about some persons who are considered to be Nigerian but might be considered to be Yoruba. You might have some that are considered to be Niger or Niger. You might have some that are called many different things, right? But so if you saw that on the DNA test, you got to even figure out who you're talking about, what nation, where were they actually there, did they move, did these people call themselves? So we still don't really know. Now, as far as if we go into DNA testing with Israel specifically, I mentioned those things in the beginning because those things can actually be traced as far as African Americans have the same DNA as the persons that not only live today in Kemet and in Kush, but also were buried there as slaves who have the same DNA as the persons who were buried in Israel, right? The persons who were there in the 1940s before they, because remember Israel as a state is what you know today, didn't exist until the 1940s. Remember even the president of Egypt or the prime minister of Egypt at the time made it a point to say that what was it? He made a point to say, oh yeah, Israel asked them to bow down to what they were saying, what they were doing, and he made a point to tell them, the prime minister said, we won't bow down, we won't recognize your sovereignty. They said, why won't you recognize our sovereignty? And he said, well, when you left, you were black, and now that you come back, you're white. So it's known those persons are not the same people who were there even in the 1930s, 1940s. We've told you guys before, look on YouTube, look up Israel in the 1930s, look up Israel in the 1910s, look up Israel in the 1800s, and you'll see videos of persons that look like you and I, and what you would think is African garb, right? Because that's who lived there, even recently. So the Palestinians that are there now, they're not even original. And the persons that are there, the Israelites, so-called Israelites that are there, the Israelis, they're not original. So that's why when persons ask me, as far as personally, I have no dog in the fight, because I'm like, well, both sides, now I don't want genocide of any kind. We don't support that. Let me make that very clear. So I'm not here to be like, man, they can do whatever they want. No, I don't like hearing about babies not eating, babies being malnourished or when they're growing, and you seeing fifth graders look like they're 7 or 8, or really 5, 6 in height, but 7 or 8 in body, and they don't know how to say certain words, and they know how to read, write, whatever. We're not with that, for sure. That being said, though, Yeah, like those are not the people of Israel. Those are not the well, Palestinian is a catch-all word, so I guess you could say they're Palestinian, but they're not who they are. So anyway, so we're about to do those things to close out. But yeah, the DNA testing and everything is something that can easily go a whole bunch of different ways, different directions, different routes. Right. That's so. If somebody were to ask me about the 23andMe test and all that stuff, I would take all that in order. That being said, here's a couple of quick ways that you can kind of know. It doesn't mean you're guaranteed, but these are just some things that help you at least make the next step. If you haven't heard of these before, look them up, see what I'm talking about. If you are O positive, it's not guaranteed that you're an Israelite, but if you're O positive, that's a door you can go down to keep on going down the path. If you're talking about DNA wise, look up something called E1B1A. E is in egg, number one, B is in boy, the number one, A is in apple, the number no number. E1B1A or E1B1B. Those who are E1B1A are considered to be Israel. Those who are E1B1B are actually considered to be connected to Israel, usually through Cush or usually through Kemet. So if you have O positive or if you have one of those, that's something. Now that's bloodline. That's blood, right? Now you're talking about, and it's DNA too, but that's blood. You're talking about DNA, which is the mother side, because you hear people talk about the paternal versus the maternal. If you're looking for a maternal or even just connection, because maternal can still make its way through different things. But if you're talking about the maternal side, which is usually heavily more thought about on the Jewish side, the Ashkenazi side, well, maternal, you were looking for L2, L3, L4. I'm not talking about vertebrae. I'm talking about the actual DNA. You're looking for L2, L3, L4. You could possibly look at L1. You can possibly look at L5, and apparently you can possibly look at L0. I don't know what that means, by the way. I'm just keeping it the butt. I know that if you talk to persons and talk about DNA, you get your DNA tested. If you have L2, L3, L4, there's no denying who you are. If you got L0, L1, L4, L1, L0, or L5, then there's still a conversation to be had. Right? At the end of the day, like we said, though, the goal is to make sure you live by the laws, the regulations, all those things. The haplogroups, thank you. We're talking haplogroups. See, thank you for them. So the haplogroups, you're talking about E1B1A, E1B1, right, and then or E1B1B, and then you can start getting into E1B1A or E1, or or you can start talking about 1, 2, 3, 12, 13. That's when you start. I can't tell you what that exactly means. I can tell you for sure. L2, L3, L4, E1B1A. Obviously you have connection. There's no doubt about it, right? And even Israelites or so-called Israelis or Israelites and Israelis of today who live over there, they can't deny. So when you have that blood type, right, that's why it's important to know who you are too by blood and by DNA. When you have that blood type, they can't deny who you are. So they actually literally have to, you're entitled to, you're entitled to a check. Now they don't give our people over in West Africa a check, but by law, technically, they're supposed to get a check. So once again, that's that whole reparations. They keep waiting for something that, by the way, is really, they are more Israel than the other persons. But, they have to wait for somebody else to give them what they need. That's why we talk about a lot here, inward reparations. So getting back to that system, I'm done. Getting back to that system we've been talking about, them to end. We put a system together. It's got to be something that's going to cause inward reparations. Because it's not the responsibility of the slave master, as we know. Abraham Lincoln didn't give you reparations. Well, he would have had it been allowed to destroy the South. He would have given it to you just because he needed you to defeat the South to make sure the South couldn't rise again. But that being said, Abraham Lincoln wasn't as interested as that because during the war he was already giving reparations to the slave owners, right? So persons have got reparations. Jewish persons have gotten reparations from America because America, if you look at them train tracks leading up to Auschwitz, those are American names of the tracks, right? They were making money off that. That being said, they gave reparations to them. They're not really going to give reparations to you. And one of the reasons you give reparations to them is because you forget that Jewish slave owners, right, in the 1800s, are going to be the ones who are going to be fighting for Jewish freedom, supposedly over there, and getting together with the Rothschilds and getting together with Ashkenazi and the Khazarian and all that in Europe. So they're doing it against their own family. Matter of fact, a lot of you forget that Jewish persons were like, hey, we could actually save more people if we did this differently. And they were like, no, we want that land real quick. And they let a whole bunch of that stuff happen with genocide continue because they were like, hey, the deal is if we let them die, we get more land. We'll get it faster. They were buying it from England. They were getting the help from the CIA. They were getting the money from the Rothschilds. So they don't care. They didn't care about any of that stuff. They really didn't. They really don't. They're really not worried about it. They're really not concerned about it. They don't care. So if you find these things out, it's there. But anyway, so there's a lot more to it. hopefully that helps with the DNA. I probably went a little further than what you were really asking for. If you get those DNA tests though done once again, even if at least you know your family went through somewhere, or maybe you can find out that you got a cousin or something like that through some. I know they don't all work for that intent, but I'm just saying maybe you can find some information on persons doing that. But ultimately, DNA specialists themselves will tell you they don't think that that's the best way for you to try and find out where exactly, where somebody's from, like the place they're from, or even the people they're of. It's not always the best because you're still getting incomplete information. You're getting more information, but you're still getting incomplete. Last thing I'll say about that, this is real quick. It's funny. Remember the, so I don't know if some of you saw this or not. This is years ago now. There was a guy who started taking his pet's DNA, including most infamously an iguana, I believe. And he took the iguana and sent the DNA test in, and they told him that him and the iguana were related and came from the same people. So that in and of itself shows you that obviously something's going on. And then there were persons who were suing, usually twins, who would send their stuff in, and the twins would have completely different DNA, where we knew that they were actually identical twins, right? So stuff that's impossible has been caught up with that too, and that's why they're having issues as well, and they're getting sued a lot. So I would, just be careful with some of that from that regard too. But once again, that's like anything else. Study. If you want to go through there, see which ones were at least considered to be more truthful, more upfront, more viable. Don't just go to somebody because they have a better name. Go to the ones that have a better, they have a better brand name. Go to the ones that have a better name because of at least being moral. So, but we'll leave that there for today. Thank you so much. I appreciate you all for being on with us. We'll see you, I guess, tonight for the live session. I don't think we have anything really scheduled for today. Besides phone calls and different things. Remember, we're getting closer to the Feast of Tabernacles and all these different things. So in the middle of September, basically we're going to be, on the move. We'll be meeting with persons. We're going to try to see if we can meet with a bunch of persons here in September before we start really moving and go down. But we got to get ready to go to Texas. We got to get ready to meet in Georgia and then go meet on the land after that for the Feast of Tabernacles, and then take some time off. So we're about to start moving. So hopefully we'll see and hear from you guys on the stuff for the different classes. We're still continuing our classes. We've been doing on Tuesday and Thursday evenings, the grafting sessions, which are basically like new member sessions. If you need to get donations in, please let them come in. If you're looking for shirts for Brother Jermaine for the upcoming stuff in this company, get in touch with him. Jermaine Insurance, JermaineInsurance@gmail.com. JermaineInsurance@gmail.com. I'll probably be wearing some of that stuff for you in the next week or so, next couple of weeks or so you'll see what it looks like. But we have put it on the shout out before. I will not do a typical shout out again today, but we have the information we've been putting in different places. I'll continue to put it up on social media. We're continuing every Monday on Zoom to have our meetups, our meetings, just for those who are coming virtually or physically. But we're going to start having multiple meetings, and maybe not this week coming up, but the following week we'll start having 2 meetings a week for those that are coming for the trip. So make sure everybody's in place, everybody knows what we need, everybody who's volunteered to do something is there, what type of food is going to be made, who's making food on what days for their different sessions, all that stuff. We're running a big thing, prayerfully. We're expecting, I'm expecting at the heights of it on the busiest days, at least 50, 60 of us, something like that. That's what we're prepared for. So, and not just 50, 60, prayer could be 50, could be 40 tents or so, out there at the same time. So, we're looking to make this stuff work and have this stuff come together. But thank you. We're done with our Q&A for this every other week. Tomorrow we'll get back into the regular live session format, and we'll keep sending out information for the upcoming events so everybody can be ready. So thank you. We appreciate you again. That's all that I have for today. What do you say? One of these places again. Oh, yeah. Amen. Oh, by the way, that's true, too. I didn't say that. If somebody is, in fact, asking you for your DNA, you send it, read what you're signing, because you're basically giving persons permission to have your information and to use it as they see fit throughout the universe with all perpetuity, right? So if they have your DNA, they have a lot about you, okay? So just kind of keep that in mind. I know some people say that's conspiracy theory. That's a fact. If you go to the doctor's office and they take your stuff, whatever. A lot of you don't know, if you go to jail, you go to prison, especially if you end up being innocent for something and you went to trial, you have a right to go to them and ask them for your fingerprint back, because they should have never even taken your fingerprint. That's your intellectual property. So you have a right to go back and be like, hey, y'all put me in prison, but I ain't actually do that. Or you put me in this. Time is up for that though. Or you took it from me. You never even gave me permission to say no. I didn't know I had permission to say no. UCC 1-308. I need that. I need to ask for stuff back. It takes a little bit, but it's not as difficult as you might think. I had to do it. So it's not as difficult as you might think. I had to do that in DC, where I had to go. I had to find the original lawyer that I had, and then that lawyer had to go in and ask not only that my name and everything be taken off, because I had no record, but my name be taken out of the system, but then also I was able to say, hey, I want my fingerprint back. So you can't do that, but that's all intellectual property. So if you're doing it with your DNA, you're literally, whether you're swabbing or some of you getting shots or whatever, you're literally consenting to them having a piece of you or owning a piece of you by law. All right, so that's true. That is true. I forgot to mention that. Anyways, though, love y'all. We got to go for today. I'll see y'all on the live tonight, and then I think that's the main thing, is the live tonight. Those who have your children coming, by the way, I put out a video to show you. We got some more gifts and things like that coming. Somebody completed that assignment for us. Thank you, Sister Greta, for making the bookmarks for the children, for the PBS stuff we were doing. So we'll be sending that out to the baby soon, too. And that's all that I have. Oh, yeah, and for the parents, too. We are going to continue to homeschool and stuff. I just, we're taking a break just this week, and we were trying to see how many persons we're going to continue when school started. So we'll be starting that stuff back up next week on Wednesday and Thursday. All right? And hopefully, Sister Carla's busy on the move and stuff too, to support her stuff. She's got at least books, and maybe soon might be able to also start teaching and doing some things as well for them too. So we'll try to look at adding math, science, and some other things in there. And I will work. I'm still working. I can't remember which parent asked me. I won't say which parent asked me rather, but the one who was asking if we had proof or evidence that we can share of what we were doing. I'm working on putting something together that you can give to the state or whoever you're dealing with for homeschooling, to make sure that you have all the evidence and stuff that you need, and all of our numbers, et cetera, that you need to put on the system. Or if you can even get a sheet from me, I'm going to send you a sheet. But if you can send me the sheet, if there's one that you have to fill out in the state you're in, just send me the sheet, and that's actually easier for me to make sure I fill in all the information for you. All right, so that's it. Ta-da, masha bakhe. Thank you, family. Have a great day. How you doing, K-Sweet? Hope that you guys learned something. It's my pleasure to be on here again. Continue to share these live sessions and stuff with persons or whatever. We were hitting, big numbers. We're still hitting them on YouTube, but TikTok, we've been doing a lot lately to make sure that they condense the numbers. And like we know, it's in ebbs and flows. We start hitting numbers and then they start pushing down. But feel free to let persons know we're on days like today and things where they, address it. Now, I'll be honest, today it was my fault because technically TikTok doesn't want mine is on there. So I have my son on here reading. It is what it is, but I'm just saying in general, we've seen that. So thank you guys for being on here. Thank you for keep pushing those numbers. Thanks for making sure that we're living this righteously. Thanks for supporting each other's businesses. Thank for those who are looking for stuff from Elder Alma. I know for a couple of years she's putting some stuff together, for the herbs and stuff like that she's going to send to you guys. So look for those tinctures and things to be on their way too. Once again, look for the shirts. Look for the food that's being put out through the SOC. And we'll be seeing you guys in person in those places. And even if you're not in those particular places, don't forget we're still going to put it on virtual. So you'll still be able to catch what we're doing. All right. So love y'all. You all take care. Thank you so much. You guys have a great day. Continue to do righteous things. I'll just let you guys look at the water. If you are on TikTok with us, you can go ahead and look out there. If you want to do a version of the shout out, you can. And we'll get back to you. And also, I think that's everything. Last thing, DMs. Those of you who've been doing the shout out, telling us where you're from, where you are, all that. I've been reaching out. Some of you I can't reach out because, and I'm not saying it's wrong, just saying you have your thing blocked off as private. So when I request to try and send you a message, we have to both be friends, which means that, at least on TikTok. So through YouTube, just look at the description and get in touch with us. And text us up on the 202 numbers. That's easy. But if you're using just the link tree only, or if you're getting a DM from us, we're sending them out, but you have to be friends with us first. So if you do another shout out for us, you might have to do another one just to let us know, and then I can go back and check if it's open for me to send you a message. I'll send you a message that basically just says, thank you for being on. We appreciate you. We see you're from this area, and is it all right for somebody to contact you? If so, we'll give you something you can fill out, or we'll give you a place you can email or text, and then somebody can get back in touch with you. Okay? So if you're somebody on TikTok and doing a shout out, but you guys can get in contact with us, it's due to the fact that we, tried to reach to you more than likely, and we couldn't get through for whatever reason. So you still have to, so you might have to do it when we do an official one with the music again down the road. You'll have to probably do that again, or you can do it now. I still go through it today, but you'll have to do that a couple more times, possibly for somebody to catch it, for me to catch it, and to make sure we reach back out to you now that we have an opportunity that what we say can actually go through and you're not blocked. All right, so that's it. That's all I got. If you want to do a shout out of some kind while looking over the water, you can. You just have to come over to TikTok. Thank you guys for being on. I apologize for, us getting blocked a little bit today. It is what it is, but I appreciate y'all. And the numbers are still there, and we're still doing what we're supposed to. We're still growing, and we're still looking at different things. So keep us in prayer. Keep praying over the land. Keep praying over right mindset. Keep coming to the lessons. Let's keep thinking about this city properly. Let's keep supporting each other's business. And let's make sure that we get all that stuff together. Elder Anais is there, including myself, but not as available. But Elder Anais is there too to help if you need help with EIN stuff and how to make sure that you put stuff together and what number you need to put it over, or talking through it as far as what you want to classify yourself. We have persons that can help with that as well if you're trying to make sure that you get your business started correctly, or if you have your business together, that you still get that part together too, because you need to make sure that all that's together. That's why some of you are having a hard time with the IRS and other things that really would probably be a lot easier depending on how you're called or what you want to do. Okay, all right. Done for real this time. Remember that you are loved, you're necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Early Shabbat Shalom. If I don't see you this evening, take care. Yam Vav Shalom. We'll talk to you soon. Join us for the shout out on TikTok. Peace.